Okay, so give me a second while I try to figure out how to share this out for the few people who might actually catch it live. And I'm going to look at the comments, and if somebody pops in with a comment or something like that, I will try to make sense of that at the same time. I should start off by saying good morning, everybody. It's 11:05 on Sunday, November the 1st. I hope everybody had a good Halloween and got a chance to spend some time with some family and got a chance to actually have some non-COVID related craziness. I know everybody's pretty fed up across the world at this point with everything going away because of COVID and not being able to do anything because of COVID and not being able to get out. So I think for a lot of people, just cleaning up the side table where my daughter has her thing sitting there. Anyways, I know a lot of people are tired of it. So let me share this out and we'll see where that leads us. Is the sound working properly? Yep. Okay. So I hear sound. I've got this. Give me a moment where I jump over to Facebook and I'll put it up on Glenn Friends. If I can, because half the time the stuff is a pain to work with. If I can get, it's asking me if I logged in, which is good. Yes, this was me. All this two-factor authentication slows everything down. All right, let me go to here. What I really hate is how things turn into like a back and forth that we don't want to turn into like some sort of a nasty back and forth. We want people to have an idea what's going on. We want people to be a part of things as much as possible. Sorry, give me a moment while I figure out on Facebook how to pull up the Glen Owners Association page, and I'll start talking about what I'm here to talk about in a minute. Create post. Control V. Nope. I used to work on a PC, and then I have a Mac at home. So between the two things. I didn't realize how the lighting is in here because my daughter usually does like her homework and stuff and her school stuff. All right, now can I share this post over to Glenn Friends somehow? Not what I meant to do. Again, give me if you're actually watching this, I can't see who's watching or anything yet. Give me just a moment. I'll be back on the main screen. I want to share this to a group. And I'm going to try to share it over to Glenn Friends. And okay, share. Is that how you share? 50-50. It says it's shared. I'm also going to share it to the townhome group because maybe some people are on there. Okay. Now let's look on Glenn Friends and make sure that went through. I see notifications coming through. I see a new post. A mailed letter in form time submit feedback would be nice. Yes, Eric, I will charge you for that letter. That's the problem I keep running into is everybody's like, we don't want to pay more money. And then they're like, well, can you mail letters? And even if I mailed out the letter and feedback, I expect the feedback to be don't spend the money. We're not looking for people to, if somebody's got a suggestion on how we can do things. But we're not looking for people to tell us, I don't want you to raise the dues. Let me jump back over to live streaming now. There we go. We're not looking for people to say, I don't want you to raise the dues. We know you don't want us to raise the dues. We are wanting people to know why we are raising the dues and what we're doing to raise it. So good morning again. It's November the 1st. It is 11. I can now see the YouTube comments, by the way. It is 11:10 a.m. and I've got my phone in my hand so that I can jump onto Facebook, and I'm going to look back through the comments. And there's a couple threads. This is what always happens. The worst part of Facebook stuff is we post up information and people, instead of commenting there on our page, they go to All Glen Friends and they start talking about things, and that becomes a ongoing thread where we don't know what's going on half the time. So I'm going to look through these posts. I'm going to make some comments on them, and I'm going to try to kind of explain some things. And if somebody's got some specific questions, maybe we can try to answer some stuff here. So this initial post that I'm looking at, this is the post that was started by Daniel Scott Mabrito, I believe it is. And I apologize if I'm slaughtering your name, but he was going on here saying, a lot of you may not be aware of this. The board will be making a decision soon that will increase our HOA dues by 30 to 50%. That's relatively accurate, I think. We are talking anywhere from 200 to 240 per month, up from the current 160. Again, I think his math is probably right there. That's probably the most accurate information I saw in here. This is to get additional money into our reserve for future improvements. Now that's a little bit of a misunderstanding. Your operating budget is up here. Like, this is how much money it costs to pay for the things in the neighborhood that townhomes use. Just townhomes. I'm not talking about anything else. You guys are paying like this much. So we need to get your operating account up. In addition to, we need to also make sure that we're putting the right amount of money away for long-term repairs and stuff. So it's a little bit of a, it's not an intentional misinformation. I mean, you could say, yeah, we can short your reserves to the point where we're putting hardly anything in your reserves. And then you could technically say we're raising the dues so we can fully fund your reserves. A term that I think got misunderstood. Fully funding the reserves means if we say that you have an item that needs to be replaced in 30 years, and that item's going to cost $30,000, then what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, let's save $1,000 per year. So if we put $1,000 in the reserves this year, I would then comment, we fully funded the reserves. And you would go, so we have $30,000. And I would say, no, we're disconnecting here. We're not connecting. Fully funding the reserves means whatever we've decided needs to go into the reserves each year, we did it. We put it in there. If we're underfunding the reserves, that means instead of putting $1,000 in per year for 30 years, we only put $900 in per year for 30 years. And then at the end of the 30 years, we're short the money we've not been saving. So that's what, when we use the term, we fully funded the reserves, or where you've heard that in the past, that doesn't mean that we've got all the money today. It means that if we stay on the track that we're on and we keep putting the money where we're supposed to, we will be fully funded. Daniel went on to say, this is to get additional money into a reserve for future improvements, i.e. repaving in the neighborhood. I understand the need. So when somebody says, I understand the need, what I recognize there is that you're saying, I get it. I know exactly what you're saying. I understand this need, but they are looking for us to cover this in a 1 or 2 year option when it can be spread over multiple years. That is not true. Again, I think that's a miscommunication. The money that we need to increase the dues by, that is not a 1 or 2 year increase to get all the money that we need right now. What we were talking about when we're talking about the number of years to spread it out, what we were saying is, okay, let's say that you guys currently pay $160 per month, and what we need you to be paying is $200 a month. That would mean we need to increase the dues by $40. What we're saying is, for the next foreseeable future, forever, you need at least to go up to that $200 point, just to get to where we need you right now and where you should be going forward. Then when we were talking about the 1 to 2 year thing, was do we take that $40 increase and we say, okay, $40 this year, that's what you owe, and then from then on, that's just the amount? Or do we say, okay, well, let's increase it by $20 this year, and then next year we'll increase it by at least another $20 to get to that point? Because you have to remember the cost of expenses goes up over time. So if the landscaper is charging more for pine needles or something like that, and I see people are joining in, so I'm sorry if you're a little bit behind here. I'll kind of recap in a few seconds here as to what I'm talking about. But if the cost of pine needles goes up in the neighborhood, then our dues have to go up. So that's a cost of living expense, that kind of thing. So when we're talking about you need to increase by $40, for instance, I'm using random numbers here. If we say you need to go from $160 a month to $200 a month, that is just where you need to be in order to fully fund all of your expenses, to fully fund your reserves as they need to be over the next foreseeable 20, 30, 40 years, not fully fund your reserves today to the amount needed. And I think that's where we're really miscommunicating, because we're putting information out, the information's not being fully received, therefore we're not communicating effectively. We're trying to find a way to get everybody to understand it. So I see we've got a couple people who jumped in, so let me start over just to kind of remind everybody where we are and bring you up to speed. Hi, I'm Rob Smith. I'm the serving president of the homeowners Association. I've been on the board since 2013. And the big benefit I've got is I've seen all the stuff over the years. So that's kind of my claim to fame here. I do not run the board. I do not make all the decisions for the neighborhood. I don't choose what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. Those are all misunderstandings of how the president of the association works. My job primarily is to communicate with people and make sure that the meetings are run, that kind of thing. I sign documents and stuff. So, but what I wanted to do today was I wanted to take a little bit of time to sit down and kind of go through the Facebook messages and try to bring people up to speed and to help them understand some of the confusion. So what I was just talking about a moment ago, you should be able to go back. I think I can save the stream. I hope so when it's done. You should be able to go back and look, but I was basically talking about what we're saying when we're talking about bringing these funds up. So I'm kind of going through Daniel's original post on the Glen Friends page and just talking about what he was saying. So no, we're not saying we're going to raise the dues for 2 years and then you guys will be all funded up and you'll be good to go and we'll reduce it back in. We never said that. We would never claim that. What we're talking about is you need to pay in a certain amount per year into your reserves to be able to cover your big expenses. You also need to pay in a certain amount per year to cover your yearly, just regular operating expenses, landscaping, things like that. When we look at the bills, you guys aren't paying enough money to cover all those expenses. So that's what we're talking about, is getting you to where you're supposed to be paying so that you're not always behind. You're currently always falling behind, and we don't want to do that. We've tried to raise this slowly over the last couple of years. That's why you saw, if you look back historically, you'll see that there were years where we raised the dues by 3% for I can't remember the numbers, but maybe we raised the dues for like 3% or 4% for the townhomes, and we didn't raise the dues at all for the single family homes. That was to bring the numbers up. So, and we just can't get there quick enough. It's constantly falling behind. So we're just trying to bring it up. And for anybody who just joined, hi, I'm just trying to look through the Facebook messages, and I'll save this and you'll be able to go back and catch the first 13 minutes if you missed it. So I'm glad people are taking the time to hop in. And the comments section, I can see it on YouTube, so you're welcome to comment there. If you comment on Facebook, I may not catch up with it because I'm literally looking at the Facebook page and trying to comment from what I see here. So Daniel went on to say, they're looking for us to cover this in a 1 to 2 year option when it can be spread over multiple years. Nope, not trying to get you to fund your reserves completely in the next 1 or 2 years. That we're looking to increase the dues so that you can fund your reserves for the next 20 years. Or 30 years or 40 years, whatever. He says, I do not know about most of you, but I cannot afford this increase. So initially, Daniel starts off saying, I understand this need, but then he goes on to show that he doesn't really understand exactly what we're saying. And then he says, I can't afford this. And I get it if you can't afford it, but we have to figure it out someplace. And that's where we were kind of looking for some input from the town homeowners. Like, do you want us to just get rid of the landscaping for you guys and you mow your own grass? And that would save you a ton of money, but you're going to have to maintain your grass, and you're going to have to take care of it and make sure that we can actually see that it's mowed. We're already fighting with the landscaper trying to get that done. Do you want us to get rid of your trash service and you drive your trash down to that's $900 a month. Drive your trash down to the whatever it's called, the trash dump down there, the foxhole, can't even think. $900 a month divided by 64, that costs you $14.06 a month. We can save $14.06 per month if you want to take your own trash out, but I don't think people are going to want that. So you've got a level of expectation up here for what you're looking for, and then you've got an actual level of where you're paying. Who's going to pay this? That's the thing. It's got to either come down or you've got to pay it up. So Daniel went on to say, and I appreciate the fact that Daniel at least took the time to get on here and try to explain what his concerns are and what's going on. He says, you can watch the video here to see the explanation, and he points him to the website. It's labeled major dues increase. I was not even aware of this until somebody sent me the link. And that right there, so there's no way for me to 100% communicate every piece of information to every person, no matter how hard I try. If I send a letter saying watch the video, somebody's going to say I don't have internet access to watch a video. Somebody's commenting. Give me a second, yes, and I'll take a look at your comment. If we send letters out, it costs money to send letters, but also not everybody's going to have access to the internet. They're going to say, if I say, well, let's have an in-person meeting, people say, well, the time doesn't work, and we've adjusted the times all over the place. We've done so much to try to get the information out there. That's why we maintain a website and a Facebook page and a YouTube page. And I promise you that, for those of you who do just have this I hate Rob thing going on for whatever reason, almost all of that will go away when I'm gone, because you see who does the YouTube videos, you see who does the website, you see who does the Facebook page. These are things I do because if I wasn't on the board, I would want the information. So that we try to communicate it to as many people in as many different ways as possible. But there's always going to be somebody who I have to work that night. I can't make the meeting. The internet doesn't work, so I can't watch videos. I don't know how to use the internet, so I can't get on the internet. I don't have access to Zoom, so I can't use Zoom. There's always going to be a problem of some sort. So what we're trying to do is give the max we can and just get it out to as many people as possible. So for somebody who's saying, I don't have access or don't have the ability, I don't know what's going on. And when I've got the one thing I didn't like from Daniel and I didn't appreciate, and Daniel, I've never met you in person, I don't think, sir. Maybe we have, and I apologize if we have, but he says it's kind of secretive if you ask me. I laugh, ha ha, in your face if you tell me that we're secretive at all. I go right now to any HOA. Go to any HOA. Find an HOA, a local HOA, look up their stuff and show me one of their videos of their meetings. Show me their documents. Get all their stuff. Even if you don't live in this neighborhood, if you're thinking about moving to Almond Glen, you can go on our website, look up all our documents, see our HOA dues and information and everything. You can find our budgets. You can watch these videos. You don't even have to live in Almond Glen to be able to find out what's going on with the Homeowners Association in Almond Glen. So when somebody says we're being secretive, it actually makes me laugh. Like you see people say laugh out loud all the time. That literally makes me laugh. We are the most non-secretive HOA I've ever seen. Let me respond now since I've read through his thing, and I'm gonna look through the comments, but let me respond to the comment that's coming up right now. Rob, this is very helpful, so thank you. You're very welcome. I truly do want to help. Could you please share with us how the reserves have been contributed to since the start of time? Do we know how much the single families have contributed to the reserves versus what the townhomes have contributed? That is a fantastic question. So when we took over the neighborhood in 2013, when the neighbors took over the neighborhood and we were first voted in, we had around $50,000 in our reserve account. Our reserves had been severely underfunded by the builder. That was by design. They do, let me put this on silent so people do message. When you're a new builder and you're building homes, you want everything to look as great as possible, obviously. So one of the things to make it look as great as possible is you look at your expenses, which they're very low, obviously, when a neighborhood's first being built. You look at your expenses and you set your HOA dues at a very low amount, super low amount. The idea behind that being that when you and I are looking at buying a house, we look at how much are my HOA dues going to be? $100 a month. Oh, that's very reasonable. I can do that. Especially if you check around the area with more established neighborhoods, you find that other neighborhoods are paying twice that. And you go, wow, a pool, lights in the street lights, they have sidewalks, and it's only going to cost me this much. What they don't tell you is, and what you don't know because most people don't understand HOA finances, and I've learned quite a bit over the years, and I'm still learning all the time. But what people don't understand is those HOA finances that they're paying, they've got operating expenses, which again are very low still, and those are very low. And they don't really worry about funding the reserves, because when you came into our neighborhood, when you bought, did you ever ask how much money is in reserve? We don't know to ask that. That is something I have learned. I would definitely ask if I was looking at a new neighborhood. How much are your expenses? What is it going to cost me? What's the budget? The operating budget's this much. Okay, cool. How much is it going to cost me per month? Okay, your HOA dues are $200 per month. That sounds really great. How much money is in reserve? $12,000. Don't buy a home there. They're not prepared for anything. They have no money in their savings account. I always try to relate it to things that we know in our daily life, things that we deal with all the time in our own homes. Who here, when you started to get married, asked your potential mate, how much money do you have in savings, and do you have any big bills? We never ask that, right? We never ask, hey, Eric, I just saw you on there. I'll definitely take a look at that in a second. So you didn't ask your spouse, most likely, or your potential betrothed, to check their bank account, and you want to see what their bills look like. So when you get married, you suddenly discover your mate has no bank account, no savings account. They live paycheck to paycheck, and they also have credit card debt and school debt. Those are now your bills that you've got to pay. That's what happens when you buy into a neighborhood and you don't look at the finances, you don't look at the reserves, that kind of thing. So how were they funded? The question was simple, and I apologize, kind of went off on a little bit of a track trying to kind of make it make sense. They had about $50,000 in. What the board did was we went and we hired a company to do what's called a reserve study. The reserve study is where they look at everything we own, again, to relate it to your home. They look at your car, they look at your refrigerator, look at your dishwasher, and then they come back and they say, hey, it's going to cost you this much money to replace a car in another 10 years. It's going to cost you this much money to replace your refrigerator in another 3 years. And your dishwasher has got about a year left on it. It's going to cost you this much money to replace the dishwasher. And then what we do is we say, okay, now that we know what we own and what we need to pay for and what we need to fix, pool, retaining walls, sidewalks, any roads we own, roofs on homes, siding, all that kind of stuff. Once we look at those things, we then say, how long will they last? And we see, okay, it's going to last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, that kind of thing. As time goes by, we try to save money so that we set up a scale where we say, okay, if we save money over the years, we'll eventually have enough to pay all these expenses. So we put enough money aside that we've got $30,000 in the bank just about the exact time that we need $30,000, and then we pay that, and our reserve account drops. But we've been saving at a rate that always keeps us ahead of that. So that's how we funded them over the years. The second part of the question is, do we have how much the single families contribute to the reserves versus the townhomes? That's a really tough one. It's very tough to break down because we weren't breaking it down in the beginning. So now we're trying to do it retroactively. What I can tell you is, because the townhomes have not been, well, I guess what I first should say is, with a forensic accountant and a lot of time and money, we could probably figure that out pretty close. Or what we can do is we can look back and go, okay, well, the townhomes were never paying enough to pay all of their expenses and fully fund their portion of the reserves. So they were always behind. And we know that they're not caught up. But how much money do we really need in our general reserve? Because remember, the single family, there's two reserves, basically, the way you look at it. There's a general reserve. So things that fall under the general reserve would be repairs at the pool, big repairs. I'm not talking about little stuff. I'm talking about like maintenance items that need to be fixed. When the pool pump goes out, it needs to be replaced. If that's a $10,000 pump, don't hold me to numbers, please. But if it's a $10,000 pump, that doesn't come from just the townhome owners or just the single family owners. 295 homes in the neighborhood pay to replace that pump. So you take the cost of the pump divided by 295. That's how much money we need to save for the number of years that we have to go. If you look at something like the roofs in the townhomes, what should be happening is you take the cost of the townhome roof, you divide it by 64 because there's 64 townhomes, and you save to replace the townhome roofs. And that's where we get the amounts on it. Eric Carter says, why is the county not taking the roads from us? The county did take the roads from us. The county took over the roads in the neighborhood back on March. What was it? March, I think it was in March of 2018, if I remember correctly. Or was it 2016? 2016, 2018, something like that. The county reclaimed all the roads. There's actually on our website, there's all stuff about the reclamation when they were doing the work. They reclaimed all the roads and they took them over. What they did not take over is that portion of the road that runs from basically Almond Glen, Harrisburg Road, where you turn in the I'm talking over myself. If you're coming up Harrisburg Road and you turn into the neighborhood through the townhome entrance, that's Caprington. That portion of Caprington that runs all the way down to just about Almond Glen, they didn't take that over. Also, all of the roads that run around the townhomes and all the parking spaces, they didn't take any of that over. They also did not take over the pool parking lot. I think that's all the roadways throughout our neighborhood. The county said that's not us. Eric says, also, I think we need to change the CCR to be able to split the reserve fund. We would need to add a section for the townhome reserve fund. You don't need to do that because it's one big, huge budget and it's one big, huge association. We don't have a townhome association and a single family association. I wish we had, but honestly, had the builder set it up so you had a master association and then you had the secondary association, the townhome association, and they all kind of work together. I think what would have happened is the dues from the very beginning for the townhomes would have been where they needed to be, and nobody would have wanted to buy a townhome back then because it would have been higher than other areas. Because when you're properly funding everything, it's expensive. If you underfund everything, super cheap. It's just the way it goes. So I wish they would have set it up that way, but they didn't. But since they didn't do it that way, we can manage the numbers however we want. It's anybody who's ever done an operating budget. You got $1,000 in your wallet, and you say, well, 20 of this is for my lunch today, and then you go to lunch and you buy a $22 lunch. You're not stealing from yourself. You just decided to use some of the money you were going to use for a movie later that night and popcorn. You just use it for your lunch. When it comes time for popcorn, though, that night, you got to make a decision because you're running out of money. So that's the way that works. Also, is it true that under Sid's time as accountant, the reserves were planned to be used for the townhome roads and roofs, but Eric Barnes has determined the reserves will not cover the townhome roofs and roads? No. Yes and no. No and yes. So Sid, the way Sid was trying to figure the budget out was he was trying to operate under a one big happy family, let's plan our budget out for the long term and we'll just keep dumping money in and make sure that we have a nice big chunk of cash. At one point, we talked about trying to split the budget out so we had two budgets that we could review. Again, all the money is the same, but we wanted two budgets so that we could look over here and say, these are general expenses, not single family expenses, because the single family homes don't have any expenses. Those are paid for, like you don't pay for my yard, my landscaping, my roof, my single family home. You don't pay for none of that. That's not a single family expense. Or those are single family expenses, I guess I should say. We have general expenses where everybody in the neighborhood pays for the pool. Everybody in the neighborhood pays for the entrances. Everybody in the neighborhood pays for the, in my opinion, all the roadways that we use, like the main roadway, Caprington. I think that makes total sense that we would all pay for that. Sidewalks throughout the neighborhood. These are all expenses that we all share. So that's a common expense, a general expense. And then you've got townhome only expenses, things that benefit the townhomes only. A new roof on your townhome doesn't benefit a single family homeowner at all. That is your expense. And what people get confused on a lot of times, they'll say, well, doesn't the HOA cover it? Yeah, the HOA covers it in that, you are the HOA. Sorry, I'm checking messages at the same time. So Sid was trying to operate under the big, huge budget umbrella. And what we've asked Eric to do is help us split that out so we can make more sense of it on a line-by-line item. Because quite honestly, single-family homeowners throughout the neighborhood have complained for years, rightfully so, that they are paying extra money to cover things that are not they're not a benefit to them. Nobody is mowing their yard. Why am I paying money to mow a town homeowner's yard? Nobody is fixing my roof. Why am I paying money to fix a town homeowner's roof? And the easy out on that is if you're a town homeowner to go, well, because I want you to, but that's not the way it's supposed to be broke out. So we're trying to split it so we can make more sense out of it. Eric is also, let's see, is it true under Sid's time the account reserves not because okay, but yeah, no, ultimately no, the reserves that we're saving, and the reason we're talking about the increase that we need is to make sure that the money is there over the years. And what we're doing is we're going, okay, we've got this much money in the reserve budget. The way the board's arguing is whether or not we should take, do we give you half of the money and say, well, half of it's yours, even regardless of what you paid in, or do we give you a bigger chunk? Because the more money that the board decides to take from the general reserve and say, okay, town homeowners, we're giving you 70% of it, and we're going to keep 30% in the general budget. The more money we put in the townhome budget or townhome reserves from the beginning, the bigger start off we give you, the lower your dues need to be, because over the next 20 years, you need less money if we gave you more to start. And since if we sit down and do some very quick math, we could show you where you haven't paid squat into the general reserve, because if your expenses were always exceeding the amount of money you're paying in, you weren't paying anything really into the reserves, it hardly anything. So we don't think it's right though to just say, town homeowners, you're on your own. We want to make sure that we take a big chunk of that money and put it over there. So that's part of the decision, is how much money do we take from the general reserve and put into the townhome reserve? And again, you can put it in any pile you want. This is just numbers on paper so that we can divide the money out and make it make sense. Let me catch up with the comments. And thank you guys for taking time to be on here. I mean, I'm taking time on a Sunday to try to talk to you. You're taking time on a Sunday to watch and comment. So I really appreciate that. Let's see. And also, you can hear my voice instead of seeing typing. I think that takes some of the tone off. I think sometimes people think I'm being mean to them or yelling at them. I don't mean to be that way. Sometimes I get frustrated because I feel like I've said the same thing multiple times, but I really should be frustrated with myself for not finding a way to communicate. And I do instruct at work as part of my job. So it's frustrating to me personally when I can't get something across to somebody. It's a failure on my part. So Eric says, what is the cost for the roofs and the siding? I don't know off the top of my head. I think that we have those numbers someplace, but you have to remember too, we don't know what it's going to cost to do the roof until time. In the reserve study, they've got estimated costs for things. So if you want to pull up the most recent reserve study, we have that updated, I forget, every 3 or 5 years, something like that. If you look at the most recent updated reserve study available on the website, if you can't find it, I'll find it. I think it's in the budget section someplace. But if you look at that reserve study, that shows you estimated costs of things, and that's how we figure out how much money we need to save. So for instance, I use the car example all the time. If you have a car in your driveway right now and you say, hey, my car is going to last me another 5 years. Let's say 10 years, because the math is easier for me when it's 10 years. My car in the driveway right now is going to last another 10 years. In 10 years, I'm going to have to replace my car no matter how well I maintain it. So I go out and I look and I say, a new car is going to probably cost me $30,000, whatever. That means if you want to be ready to go, a responsible person with your money, you need to save $3,000 per year so that in 10 years, when it's time to replace your car, you have $30,000 in the bank. That's what a reserve study gives you. It gives you an estimated cost. Now, when it comes time to buy the car, maybe the car only costs $25,000, or maybe it costs $40,000, and then you're like, we're a little short. We got to get some money from someplace. So that's what those estimates are. So I would look to a reserve study for that. How can we go about getting the county to take it over? The county will not take over those roads you were talking about before. Like, they're not taking over your parking lots. They're not taking over Caprington. They decided that back when this initially was going on in the changeover. They considered that all part of the townhome area. Again, I personally have not seen anything to make me think that Caprington should become a townhome only expense. I think that's a general expense. Everybody should play part in that. When Caprington needs to be repaved, everybody should pay some of that. As a single family homeowner, I drive out Caprington probably most of the time I come in and out of the neighborhood. So I should pay to help repair that road. Now, I don't need to pay to fix Lanark. Lanark's a townhome road. I don't need to pay to replace Lanark. I don't need to pay to repave parking spots in the townhomes. That's my opinion on it. That's how I would vote if I had to vote right now. And that's my thought process on it. But the county's not going to take those over. It does benefit the single family homeowners because it will increase the value of their homes also. Great argument. I don't agree with you. I know we had that discussion and everything, but I don't care if it doesn't increase my home cost, like make my home worth more money because your roof is fixed. Otherwise, it sounds good. When I get a new roof, it'll help me out. So I need you to chip in some money. I mean, that's a moot argument because I'm using moot appropriately there. We could sit and argue it, but I don't agree with you. And also, the single family homeowners do not use the parking spots. They're your parking spots. If the single family homeowners come to your townhome and they park up there while they're up there seeing you, that's like saying that you're going to charge your guests when they come over to park in your parking lot. If a single family homeowner is coming up and parking in a townhome parking spot on the regular and leaving their car up there, it shouldn't be. Let's see. Also, what is the cost for roofs and siding? How do we go about getting the county to take it over? Does benefit? Okay. Marie Johnson. Hi. Hi, Rob. I understand the need for an increase. Can we get a revisit spreading the major increase over more than 2 years? We'll probably bring that up. I think it'll come up. I do have a concern that it won't get done because it's so easy to get things lost in the sauce. I mean, first of all, you're hoping that the next year's board coming in will do the right thing and keep these things on track. But what if I don't serve on the board next year? What if Eric Barnes says, hey, I'm tired. I've served a couple of years and I put a lot in this last year because he's really put a ton of effort into this year. So what if Eric says, you know what, I'm not doing it anymore. And, we all leave and you get a new board in there and the new board is more concerned about being popular, and it'll make everybody mad if we do that increase we were supposed to do. So they just decide to just let it go by the wayside. And I think somebody else read that and took that one time as well, if they're not doing the wrong thing, they shouldn't have to be worried about it. But the reality of it is I can plan to do the right thing and I can explain to you why it is the right thing. And still somebody else may go, well, I don't care about that. I want to spend money on parties. And then we got to sue them to stop spending our money on parties. So I am concerned about doing those increases over too long of a time period. But it'll be talked about, I'm sure. As we were one community, why wouldn't we all share the cost of the roads around the townhomes like we do the pool? House owners don't drive on our roads. I don't use the pool. Can we opt into the pool? Okay, so you can't opt out of the pool. I was talking about that with somebody the other day. It's a good question. No problem with it at all, and I thank you for asking it. You can't opt out of the pool because then, when you bought in the neighborhood, it's part of the amenities in the neighborhood and it's part of what's available to you. It's considered an amenity. So you've got a pool. When you go to sell your townhome, you're going to say there's a pool in the neighborhood. It's all part of the deal. As far as the everybody sharing the roads throughout your property, I personally, and I know the rest of the board still has to have this discussion, so don't hold what I'm saying right this second. I'm just very upfront with what I think. If they got rid of all of your parking lots, if we just got rid of them today and all you had was, I should say, if instead of having the roads that drive through there, if we just turned it into a great big huge, if they had made a big huge parking lot like an apartment complex, it wouldn't affect me either way. Single family homeowners aren't using those roads as like a regular through road or anything like that. It's not a part of our overall community. That's my thought process on it. Those little roads that are around the townhomes are there simply for access to your parking spots. It doesn't mean, of course, somebody isn't driving through them, but those are primarily there for the town homeowners, the way I see it. It's one of those things that we could put up a sign that says town home parking lots and roadways are for the town homeowners. Changed my mind. So that's kind of some of the feedback we were looking for from people, was kind of the argument to it. And since it hasn't been decided by the board, it's still up for conversation and debate. I know that's not the case, as that's not how things work as far as pool usage. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the single-family homeowners do use the parking spots. I don't know. You're talking about that people using the parking spots. Yeah, if a single-family homeowners are parking your parking spots, I guess if they're parking in your parking spots, if it's your parking spot and it's numbered for you and everything, I mean, you can tow them out of your spot. That's up to you to make a decision on that. If you call a tow company and have it towed out of your spot, like I can have somebody towed out my driveway, the sheriff's department won't deal with those. And the HOA generally doesn't get involved in towing cars because there's a lot of liability that comes on board when you tow cars. But if there's, I would say if you know that a single family homeowner is parking your spot and you're sure that this is their car and they actually live down on Kilchurn or something, I don't know why they're doing that, and I would bring it up. I'd make a stink out of it because they don't need to park up there. It's not their spot. It's not our fault the county chose not to take over our roads. That technically those were never cited to be the county's roads. So that's why the county didn't take them over. It's one of the things that we're using as a guideline for whether or not it's a main road or not. The reason they didn't take your roads over is because they consider them to be parking lots, and so it's not your fault. It's just the way it was designed. Just the luck of the draw, right? No, it's not luck of the draw. It's actually, like I said, those were there for the purpose of being parking lots, and that's what the county looks at. And they're like, that's a parking lot, and it's for you to park in. The access points of those roads, like I said, they're just to access the parking spaces. So, I mean, I don't mean for it to be that way. I totally agree. Our roofs and yard maintenance are our responsibility, but the roads seem to be different. But again, it's still. Were our reserves previously planned for resurfacing the town on roads? Yes. The reserve study that we had done in the very beginning has always taken into account things like repairing the roadways, repairing the roofs, the siding, all of that stuff was included. The problem was we would say, hey, how much money do we need to pay in? And we would look at how much money we take in from everybody all the time. So like all the town homeowners money, all the single family homeowner, everything. We take all that money and it's what you paid in per year. And we set that off to the side and we go, okay, how much do we need for reserves? And you go, okay, well, we need this chunk right here. We put that bag of money over here. Now we go, okay, cool. This is the money we have left to pay our bills. We're going to have to take some from here. I'm going to put it over here this year. And that's the problem. This pile over here isn't growing at the rate it needs to be because the townhomes aren't paying enough to pay all of their expenses and put money into the reserves to cover all of the reserve expenses for the future. So what we're currently doing is underfunding the reserves at times, and that is dangerous. That is a dangerous, dangerous, slippery slope, because when people go to sell their homes, their realtors often reach out with these little forms where they ask us, hey, can you tell us what your current reserves are, what your current budget is, that kind of thing. And a savvy homeowner, a savvy investor should look at it and go, they don't have enough money to pay their bills. I'm out. And that actually hurts the value of homes. So we have to make sure we fully fund the reserves and we have an operating expense so that our operating expenses are covered. It's no different than if you get paid $1,000 a week and your bills for the month are $990 a month. You're only saving, or I'm sorry, I'm doing it all wrong. If your bills are $1,000 a month and you make $1,000 a month or $999 a month, you're only saving $1. I'm doing it all backwards, aren't I? You know what I mean? You're not making enough money to pay all your bills and put money in savings. So I'm dancing all around with numbers, so I apologize. Just looking at if there's I'll watch for more comments. In the meanwhile, I'm going to look back at the Facebook. So, okay, could we please address the lack of services in comparison to what we're paying for? Do you think U.S. lawns will have our yards reseeded and finally maintained? Yes. What a great, great thing to bring up, because it's going to come up at some point. So let me have a sip of coffee. God help me when it comes to contractors. I swear. So this is the frustration we have. We pay good money for good services in our neighborhood, and the contractors keep continuously failing to follow through. And it is the most frustrating thing ever. So we have a couple of issues that come into play with landscaping. So let's talk about landscaping specifically right here, because I feel your pain, because I deal with it. And I don't like having the problem. I honestly wish we could just resolve the issues of the landscaping so that it wouldn't be a problem anymore, because then I wouldn't have, it'd be a major complaint gone. So we had US Lawns as our landscaping company. We paid US Lawns like $30,000 a year to do the work. Or it might have been even lower, a little bit lower. I can't remember. And I remember when I was new to the board, I would look at that and I would say, why is it so expensive for landscaping? Now, for anybody who knows about landscaping, you're chuckling, because I thought for what we had going on, I was like, this is crazy. We should be able to get this cheaper. So we looked around, couldn't find anybody to do it cheaper. In fact, they would always come back with these like $50,000 proposals, $60,000 proposals, and we were beating our heads against the wall. I'm like, why is it so expensive? So we talked with US Lawns, and what we did was we would argue with US Lawns to every letter of the contract and try to get them to do a little bit more work each time. And we, at one point, we had Bridget, Bridget lived here in the neighborhood. She was really big into her own landscaping, so she understood it. She spoke Spanish, so she was able to talk with all the guys who did the work and everything, because we had a lot of guys who were bilingual, but there's also some of the guys that are just, they primarily speak Spanish. So they were very comfortable with her. And she was a real stickler. She was retired, and she had a real stickler attitude with them, and she'd make sure they did everything. And we really saw a little bit of an increase in the services we get from US Lawns, because primarily she would say, I need you guys to do this. And they would go, okay, Miss Bridget. Even though it wasn't in our contract, they'd do a little extra for her. Well, then she sold her home and she moved, and we had somebody new take over the landscaping. And she worked, and she spoke Spanish, which was great, but she worked. She didn't have the same rapport. She wasn't the little old lady who they were trying to please. So the services dropped back down to pretty much what we were paying for. And at times, not what we were paying for. It was a little frustrating dealing with them. So we decided to get rid of them at the recommendation of that board member at the time. And we brought in a new company, Pinnacle. When we brought in Pinnacle laid out a contract, and the services that Pinnacle wanted to provide us were like $50,000, $60,000 worth of services. And we were like, you don't have $50,000 to $60,000 to work with. So Pinnacle said, okay, well, we can save some money in the contract here. And he took a bunch of things out of the contract. And then we said, okay, cool, $30-some thousand. There we go. The problem is, when your landscaper tells you you need to do aeration at this time, you need to do seeding at this time, you need to do these things, and you say, well, I can't afford to do that, so I'm not going to do it. And then the next season rolls around, and you ask them, why isn't my grass growing right? And they go, well, we needed to do aerate, we needed to overseed, and we needed to fertilize, and you didn't want to pay for it, so I'm doing what I can with what I got. And that was our problem. So we went out looking for a new landscaper, because we figured there was other issues there too, and we decided, okay, let's find another landscaper. So we brought in our last landscaper, and I still can't think of his company name, but Lee was our landscaper, and Lee came in with experience and knowledge and a real interest in doing things, and about a $60,000 a year contract. And we said, board, this is what it's going to cost to do business. So the board squeezed and pulled and found money to pay for the services we want, because here's the services we want. Here's what we've been paying for. So we gotta get there. So we adjusted the budget, made a whole bunch of changes, hurt our reserves, probably in the long run, I think. And we said, okay, we'll make this work with the $60,000 contract. Well, the problem with landscaping is if I gave you money to go out and redo your yard right now, it'll look great when you first put it out, but you've got to maintain it. And you got to do some stuff. So the landscaper came in, and by the time we realized the services he's doing aren't keeping up, and then we started nailing down like, how many people do you actually have working for you? It turned out Lee had decided to, because of some sudden life changes that came up, issues with his wife's health. There was a lot going on, and because of that, Lee couldn't keep up with the work, and it was not anything malicious on his part. So we weren't angry at him. We had a meeting where we just agreed that in talking, he can't keep up with it. So we went back and looked at how much we had paid him, and we said, okay, we've already paid you plenty of money for all the services you provided. We had him finish out while we brought in a new contractor, and we didn't pay him anything more from the day we figured it out. So we cut off that contract, and everybody walked away. We went out and looked at, like, I think it was 5 different contractors, 5 different landscapers, and we fought to get the landscapers in place and get all of the money together, figure out what we were going to do, get them started. And then we came back and we said, okay, U.S. Lawns, because U.S. Lawns had the best contract of them all. We can get out of it if there's problems. They're not protected against, if they damage something, they got to fix it. That's why we're going back. They're trying to get the mailboxes replaced in the townhomes. They damaged them. So the other contractor, one of them that we had, I forget the name of it, is Bird, was our number 2 contractor. They looked really great. But if they had hit those mailboxes, their contract actually said it's not their problem. So in the end, we decided to bring U.S. Lawns back under a much more full contract. And I was just talking the other day about maybe I'll try to look at those contracts and see if we can go and get those posted where people can look through them. But a bigger, more full contract that really covers everything that we want. So now we've got the services are up here, the costs are up here, and yeah, I do have hope. Much like the trash company debacle we fought through, if you remember, I now have a trash company in place that's much better than we were. And I really hope to see over the next year, as fertilization gets done and reseeding and ant killer gets spread, because we included pest control for red ants, things like that. As all that starts getting included, I expect to see the quality come up. But because we're paying for the quality, we're really going to be watching what they're doing. We want to see that they're doing the work they're supposed to be doing. And we've been really check on them lately. So my hope is that U.S. Lawns will come up to speed. We're paying for them to come up to speed, and we are now paying a lot more money to make sure we get the service we want. So whenever somebody looks at the landscape and they say it looks like crap, my answer is no kidding. It looks like crap. You were only paying about half of what you're paying for now. So hopefully we will see those increases, and we are planning to do reseed projects in areas where it's really barren to try to go over that. But it's not promises. I've had people say several times now, we've had promises for years. We've been working for years. we've been trying. We hired new contractors, that kind of thing. Eric says, are we going to go after those contractors and get our money back? Also, for the people that have fences, are the contracts being reduced for not having to service that area? Nope, you put the kind of fence in, you blocked it off, we can't get in there. There's nothing I can do about that. If you want us to mow that area, take the fence out of the way. So I'll kill that right now. As far as, now if you mean, you know what, I misread that and I apologize. You're saying that the contracts being reduced because they don't have to service that area. That's taken into account when we bring them in and they look at the overall. But if you took your fence down tomorrow, they'll mow your backyard like they do any of the ones that don't have fences. They're not going to suddenly come back and say, well, 3 people took their fence down. We want to get back in there. We're going to charge more. They're not doing all that. It's just part of the property thing. But initially I thought you were saying, are we reducing their dues or anything? As far as going back after the contractors, it was dealt with each contractor as we went. One of the problems, one of the contractors was the pool contractor, Aquatech. They screwed up some stuff and we got fined by DHEC like $3,000 and they had to pay it all. Now are we going back after them saying, hey, we want money back for services not rendered. You didn't mow the grass when you were supposed to, so you have to pay us and everything. No, we'll spend more money going back and forth in lawsuits to get back a couple $1,000s than we would overall. I don't think it's from dealing with the courts and everything, I don't think it's worth it. If we were talking about, $30,000, $40,000 might be worth it. Thank you for the maintenance update. It's just a lot to stomach within the years I've seen our yards looking so bad. And now a change in the reserve allocation, it doesn't cover the townhome roads. The reserve allocation absolutely will cover the townhome roads, though. It will definitely do it. Tree trimming we just had done last year. I've seen that pop up a lot lately. I'm confused why people keep talking about the tree trimming. It's scheduled to be done again for some of the tree trimming, but we had a AAA tree or service, I think it was, come in, and they're the ones that cut back all the trees on Almond Glen, and they cut back all the townhome ones. I think they just grew out a little bit more, and we had them cut them back. You don't top those big silver, what are they called, silver oaks or something like that. I can't remember what they are, but you don't top those. So they cut them back off the townhomes, and I know people were saying that recently. They should trim them again in the fall. That's part of our landscaping contract, so they'll trim them back. What is the road project? Is a resurfaced or a fix like Lennar did to the single family homes? It's a good question, Jeff. And hey, by the way, hi, Jeff. Let me just one more thing. I want to make sure I say it again because I don't know, it keeps getting missed or something. The reserves that are set aside, those are to cover things like townhome roads, single family, or not single family, but townhome roads, townhome roofs, townhome siding, the siding for the pool building, the paint for the pool building, the pergola at the pool building, the decking, the entrance monuments that say Almond Glen on them, the lighting throughout the neighborhood, sidewalks. It's all included. If you look at the reserve study, which is available on the website, shows you all of that, what's covered under it. But like I said, as far as tree trimming, they cut them back every year. They're supposed to, and if we need a bigger amount of tree trimming, we'll have probably have that AAA tree company come back in because they did a good job. We'll have them come in and do a much bigger overall. But landscapers are supposed to cut it back as they go. I mean, the allocation of the reserves that was previously to cover the townhome roads, isn't this a reason for the major dues increase? It's a good question, Jeff. I'm not going to forget you. I'll get back to you. Let me say it again in a different way. So how can I do this? Everybody's got different learning styles, and I recognize that, and I want to help. I'm trying to think how I can do this. This is the amount of money that the townhomes need to pay into the reserves every year in order to be fully funding the reserves. This is what you've been paying. This has been missing. So how do we pay this? Single family homeowners paid extra to get you like right here. This is my money as a single family homeowner that I'm paying for your roofs and your siding. I put it in here for you. You guys only paid this much. Now, what we're looking at for the future, hopefully the visual stuff's helping. I don't mean it as like being a smart aleck. I'm trying to be helpful and give a different learning style. Now what we're looking at is we still got to fill this chunk in here. So that is what the dues increase is about. The dues increase is about this part right here. When we look at what you guys have paid in, what we're trying to figure out is, do we take this back and say, you never paid it, it's not your problem? I don't think anybody on the board has thought that was a good idea. I think we're looking at it going, this is probably the right thing to do right here. And we just gotta get you guys filled in. So this is your dues increase. Tell me if that helped with the visual thing. If not, I got Whoppers candy. Wait, my daughter ate one of them. I got Whoppers I could use. So I'm trying to give different learning styles, and I am so glad you're asking the question, because if it doesn't come through, it doesn't make sense. Ask the question so that I can re-answer it. Jeff's asking about what is the road project? Is it a resurface or a fix like Lennar did to the single family home? So what Lennar did when they came through was they did a full reclamation of the roads, because the county wouldn't take over the roads until they were reclaimed. Reclamation, for anybody who doesn't understand, Jeff probably understands it, which is why he's asking the question. Reclamation is, say the roads are 8 inches thick, and the county says, okay, and at the time, this is what happened. The county said, okay, well, current standard is for roads, because remember when they're building a home, they know that they're going to have big trucks coming in and all that kind of stuff, tearing the roads up. So what they do is they build the roads to like the minimum standard. They absolutely have to. So maybe they put a 6-7 inch road in, and the standard back then was 8 inches. The county said in 2016, 2018, I forget when they did it, the current standard is a 12-inch road. So what they had to do is come in and grind up all the roads with these big grind up trucks and turn it back into basically an asphalt powder and rock and it. And then they had to re-pour everything and pound it down and make those roads meet the standards that the county expected for them to take them over. So when he's asking about what they did for the single family homes, what they did for all the roads they were taking over, they required that reclamation. Now, as far as going forward in the future, the townhome project, when they look at those roads, the reserve study is talking about coming through and completely resurfacing and fixing the roads in the future, because asphalt's going to break down over time. We all know that. The roads were not reclaimed in the area of the townhomes in the first place. So all the roads in the townhome area are basically the original 2008 standards. So they're already a sub-par to our current code. But they're still good roads. They reclaimed a small area right in front of some of the towns. When you first come in the townhome entrance and you're driving down Caprington on the right side, there was like a bumpy area through there. They reclaimed that area, and they did some surface work, but they didn't do a full reclamation. So it all depends. I mean, that's the big thing. We have to prepare for the biggest expense. I think what we're looking at is probably just a resurfacing in the future. Just like the parking lots, we're not going to have to go through and do a full reclamation of all the parking lots ever. We're going to have to probably go through and do a resurface where they'll come in, they'll grind up your top layer of asphalt, and they'll re-pour new asphalt, and then we have to restripe. That's all part of what we're planning for in the future. So hopefully that makes sense. If there's nothing new pops up in the comments for a second, I'm going to look at the Facebook comments from over at least the last week here and see if I can make some sense of it. Because I know there's been a lot of kind of thoughts and questions and concerns and what's going on. And thank you to everybody who's taken time to watch. Thanks for taking the time to do this today. These types of videos with questionnaire answers are beneficial. You're absolutely welcome, 1,000,000%. I've never tried to do like a question and answer session like this. And I'm happy to do it on a regular basis. It's funny, Eric Carter and I have been talking a lot because he's been very interested. He's taken a lot of time to try to figure it out. And I was actually thinking about having Eric either do some sort of a Zoom meeting where we record it, make it live like this, or having come over and be like, let's sit and talk live so that people can have questions. But then I was like, it'd be easier to just jump on and do this. So Eric was one of the last comments I see on here is Eric Carter was asking Eric Barnes, why would you want to cut off communication? Are your concerns not worth our time? Help us to understand, please. They're absolutely worth his time, but you just got to understand at some point he feels like he's like, I'm going round and round trying to answer your questions and I'm not getting anywhere. That's when I decided, you know what, maybe this would help. So Eric's not wanting to cut off communication completely. He's just like, look, I don't think I'm getting anywhere, so we'll just talk about it when we do the meeting. And I thought about it and was like, well, maybe I can fill in the blank here. All right, so let me jump back to Daniel's post, which is the one I was starting with, and just look down through the comments, and I'll make some comments on it, and I'll kind of like comment on the comments. And then if you have something else, I'm trying to watch out of the corner of my eye. If I see a question pop up or something, I'll jump to that. Laura Williams says, I just bought my townhome in May. While I understand the reason behind the increase, anytime somebody says, I understand the reason, and then they say something afterwards, I'm like, so I understand the increase, fully expected to go up at some point. I was quite shocked by the potential increase. I'm hoping there's a way to spread it out. So I very much appreciate that, Laura, that you understand where we're coming from. You understand what we're saying has to happen. And her input is basically, can we find a way to spread that out? And that's what the board's trying to figure out is can we or can we not? Eric Carter says, so if we ended up having the roads fully reclaimed, we'd have to bring up to standards today. Then the county would take them over? No. The county absolutely has no interest. And I was there during their little parking lot meetings back when they were doing the full reclamation. They were never going to take over those roads over there. The county guy who's out there, I totally forget his name. It's Jeff something or another. they were considering taking over those parking lots at all. The roads, the parking lots, the Lanark, all that go around the townhomes, not on their plans at all, because the county doesn't want those expenses. They're like, nope, not going to do it. So they were never interested. We were trying to figure out back then, like, why don't they not just take over the parking lots and stuff? And they were just like, it's not happening. Let's see. Is there any possibility of letting the townhomes be a part of this process in 2021 and let's make a decision for the 2022 budget? This is all very helpful. I just think letting us be a part of the process will be helpful to diffuse the situation. Yes. Yes, you can. That's a great question. Fantastic question. And let the U.S. Lawns prove they can do the job in 2021. So it feels like our money has been well spent. So first of all, by splitting out the budget, so we have a townhome budget, we can argue the dollars and cents of the townhome budget differently than we have in the past. Before, what we did is we just looked at the overall budget and we just allocated money for townhome expenses, and then that money goes up and down. And if we're short, we just take money from other places and pay the townhome bills. Like, we're not going to pay your $900 a month bill for your trash pickup, regardless of whether or not you paid enough. If you only paid $800 a month worth of townhome dues to cover that, we're just going to take $100 from someplace in the general budget. That's the way that always happens. Well, now with us separating the townhome budget out, we can argue the dollars and cents of the townhome budget more specifically. You pay in this much money per month, and then we look at that overall amount per month and we say, okay, this amount goes to your reserves, this is your operating expense, and then we can say, how do you want it spent? If there's an extra $2,000 in your budget for the year available for whatever, do you want us to spend it on landscaping? Do you want us to have them spray for mosquitoes? Do you want it saved for more pressure washing? Like, what do you want us to do with that money? So there'll be more control over your dollars and cents. That's the first positive. The other side of it is you can always be a part of it. The number one way for somebody who lives in townhomes to be involved in things is to run for the board. The only time we ever had somebody run for the board from the townhomes was when Dina ran, and I advocated hard for her. She couldn't even make the meeting. She got voted in because everybody in the neighborhood, I think, immediately recognized the benefit of people who live in the townhomes having a specific say on the board. So that's the first thing, is always run for the board if you can. If you can't run for the board, make the board meetings. If you can't make the board meetings, watch the board meetings online. At the against the recommendations of our attorney, the management company, and at times members of the boards, I have always videotaped since I've decided to do it, I should say. I've always videotaped and posted our meetings so that you would be able to go and watch them and have them available. Our attorney thinks it's bad because he's like, people will nitpick your words. I live under being nitpicked. I don't care. The management company says, well, attorneys don't usually like it because people nitpick your words. I don't care. Nitpick my words if you want to. I'll explain myself. I'm not doing anything malicious against you, so I don't have a problem if you want to nitpick my words. I always think it's better if you can see what's going on. And then the board members have at times had the same thing. Like, I don't like being on camera, and I get it. Not everybody likes to be recorded, hear their voice, or see themselves on camera. But ultimately, if I was not on the board tomorrow, if I just left the board and I'm just going to a meeting, I'm going to sit there and record the board meeting with my phone. What are they going to do? They can't kick me out. I'm a member. You can come to the board meetings tomorrow when there's a board meeting, and you can record the meeting. It's a public meeting. It's our meeting. So it seems dumb not to make it available to people. So at least watch the meetings and see what's going on in the meeting, and then you can always email or comment or message. I mean, obviously we look at Facebook. We just don't always see it if it's on Arm and Glenn Friends. But I set up a Facebook page just for people to have access. And then, Eric Carter came over, knocked on my door the other day because he wanted to talk to me about some stuff, and then we talked about this stuff as well. So I'm pretty accessible. I try to do what I can. Even if we kept the parking lots and took the roads, and they took the roads, yes, 100%. The county's way of looking at it, the guy who did all the planning for the county, who was in charge of the roads, and again, I've forgotten his name. He was not very pleasant at all back then to deal with. He didn't even like the HOA talking to him about anything. We would come up, and John Rodman was on it. on the board at the time. John was involved more with finding out what was going on more than anything. He would see a meeting going on at the pool parking lot because that's kind of where they would assemble. And John would walk across the street and kind of get in their meeting. They didn't like us being a part of it. It's none of our business. This is county business, what we're doing. They were not interested in us being a part of anything. But they didn't want your roads. They didn't want the townhome parking lots, the roads, none of it. They considered that to be townhome parking lots. Right, I agree with Eric. I don't understand why the county doesn't have the roads and we have our parking spaces. Those would be considered the single-family homes driveway. I know that's not the board's problem. Yeah, that was just that. I mean, you can go to a county commission meeting or a county council meeting and ask them to take over our roads, but no more than I want to pay for your roofs. They don't want to pay for your road. I quite honestly expected back then that they were going to stick us, the HOA, with our roads, and we were going to end up in some sort of debate over that. And then the whole neighborhood would be paying for Allendale and Kilchurn and Caprington. And we'd have been, I don't even know how that battle would have gone. That would have been a mess. So I think earlier somebody said luck of the draw, I guess. I mean, I don't even know how they decided that. They didn't involve us in it. We just know what they said. That's kind of the way that went. Like I said, I tried to document a lot of that back in the my Alex A was over here. Let's see here. Renee Vick was saying, I can't afford this and it'll cause me to have to sell my home. All right, so for the people who said, I'll have to sell my home or I'll have to put my townhome up for rent, this is where I might hurt your feelings. And I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm generally speaking, I don't try to be a mean person. If this increase means that you'll have to sell your home, then you have to sell your home. And I hate that for anybody. But if the dues in order to pay for the pool and keep everything running were so expensive that I would have to sell my home as a single family homeowner, that doesn't change the board's fiduciary responsibility to pay the bills. Some people will have to sell, I guess, as time goes by. Other people will pay it just fine. I don't want to dues increase either. But if the cost of pool maintenance goes up drastically over the next 2 years because COVID restrictions never go away and the bill goes up so high that in order to keep the pool open, the board of directors has to raise the dues by an astronomical amount and I can't pay it, then I have to move. If the county taxes, I mean, it's no different than that. If the county taxes in our county go up by $500 a year, and I think my taxes are like $1,500 a year right now. If they go up to $2,000 a year, that might be enough that I go, I can't afford to live here anymore. I can't afford my mortgage to increase that much with the amount of money I'm putting into the taxes for escrow and everything. I can't go to the county and go, well, I guess I'm going to have to move. They'll say, okay, well, move. Sell your home while you can. I hope you get a good profit out of it. We hate to see you go. You were a great neighbor, and I mean, they don't even say all that. So I'm not trying to be mean or hurt people's feelings when I say, if you can't afford the cost of living in Almond Glen, I hate to see anybody have to move, but I get it. I mean, that's just a decision you'll have to make. Just like I had people tell me, well, I'll put my home up for rent and then you'll have renters. Okay, well, you're now saying that renters, in your comments, you're saying that renters are bad people and that it'll lower the property values. It actually doesn't lower property values on it overall. I've never seen a study anywhere that says rentals lower property values. Now, do I want a rental right next to my house all of a sudden tomorrow? No, I like having neighbors that live there and have stake in the land and everything. But that doesn't mean if the guy next to me rents his house, it doesn't mean I'm gonna get bad renters next to me. It might be people who move in who are super nice and they want to live in the neighborhood someday, and just right now they can only rent. Same thing with an Airbnb in the neighborhood. I don't want an Airbnb next to me because you have this continuous flow of different people coming in and out and everything. I get all those things, but they don't necessarily immediately impact property value. It might impact the ability to sell your home. So that's different than property value. And Renee's been all over the place with her numbers. Renee, if you happen to watch this video, you've gone up to $100 a month at some points, and I don't remember discussing a $100 a month increase. I was looking over at the comments just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Please don't be shy. If you've got a comment or a thought, you're not going to make me angry. I'll do my very best to answer it. Tori says, I'm sorry to hear this. Don't like to lose great neighbors. Yeah, agreed. I don't want to see anybody move, and we'll do everything we can to find a way to make it work. I talked to some of the people who haven't been able to pay their bills over the years in the neighborhood. We've extended a lot of grace when it comes to waiving late fees and extending, what do they call that? Payment plans and all kinds of stuff. We've done a lot of things over the years, starting with in the very beginning in 2013, where I called the management company and said, no more foreclosures. We bought back all the foreclosures from our attorney that we had at the time, stopped all fines and fees. I looked at the list, and the people who live here at the time can tell you, I came and knocked on their door and said, you owe the HOA $500. What do we got to do to get you fixed? What do we got to do to get you there? So I personally have done what a lot of people wouldn't be willing to do, which is go and have a conversation themselves with people. And I know, that's why I know the neighbors here. It's why you know me, because I've been out there talking to people over the years and trying to figure out what's going on. So not about throwing people out on the street. One of the things Eric said was the reserves won't. This is Jen Burns Tobin. She says, one of the things Eric said is that the reserves weren't supposed to be used for maintenance and were supposed to be used for work on common grounds. I was surprised to learn that given the amount of money in the reserve, one of the decisions they need to make is how to split the money between the two budgets. And yeah, that's the reserves are supposed to be for great big expenses. I'll look over at that in just a second, Tori. Great big expenses like replacing the pool pump when it goes out, which is different than, say, the pool pump needs a filter change where you have to change the sand filter out, you go through and clean it and all that, and change the sand. That is a maintenance item that comes out of our operating expenses every year. The reserve is for the pump goes out completely and we got to replace it, not for parts and stuff like that. The the townhome roofs, we use operating expenses to go through and do repairs to them. Like just the other day, I got a message, somebody pointed out some missing shingles from the last windstorm. So we'll have to get somebody up there to replace the shingles and fix those little things. And the leaks that the townhome owners have, I feel terrible for you guys. You guys got I think they use brown notebook paper to make your roofs, because those things are always leaking and having problems. We don't take that from reserves. We take that from operating expenses. Tori Anthony says, Rob, I believe the $100 increase is coming from looking at the allowable maximum assessment from the budget Eric provided. Thank you, Tori. That makes sense. I kept wondering where these numbers were coming from, because some people, if you read the comments, it's kind of funny. They're like $30 to $50, and somebody else is like $50 to $80, and somebody else is like $80. And the other day I saw math. Renee did her math, and then she says 90, and I'm like, it would have been 80, but whatever. I mean, it's just, I get it, because I'm sitting there trying to do math in my head over and over, driving my brain crazy. But these numbers keep going up. I expect by the time of the meeting, I'm like, it's $1,000 increase. So yeah, the maximum allowable amount that starts from, and that's a good one for us to talk about. When we're talking about all these weird terms that throw people off, they're going to mix you up. The maximum allowable amount is at the beginning of inception of the neighborhood. When we first started, the maximum the dues could be was $1,500, regardless of what it was. The only thing the board could do was go up to $1,500. So you as a homeowner, when you bought, you could look at that and go, all right, they're not allowed to raise my dues above $1,500 this year. And then it increases by 6%. Every year, the maximum allowable amount goes up by 6%. That doesn't mean you got to raise the dues to the maximum allowable amount. So the maximum allowable amount has been going up steadily by 6% every year, like this. But maybe we've been charging like right along here. So when we look at it, we go, okay, the maximum we could do it is, boom, this amount right here. And maybe that's that $100 she's talking about, and you're right. And that's very helpful. Thank you. But we're not talking about doing that. We're talking about, well, we're saying we could do this. So we're good. We got the room to do it, but we only need to do this because we don't need extra money. We need the money we need. The way I read that line item is is that the number is what per the bylaws our assessment could be, not that was the final amount we would be for 2021 and beyond. Nailed it. Tori's got a grasp on it. That's solid. Yeah, that's the amount we could make your bill, not the amount that you're actually going to pay. So, one of the things I should point out real quickly too is those documents we put out, those are for reference points. Those are working documents. They're not finalized at all. So there's a lot of numbers in there that are all thrown off and everything. And if that's why the video works in tandem with it. If I just gave you the spreadsheets, you'll beat your head against the wall. But if I give you the spreadsheets and you look at the spreadsheets and you go, okay, follow along with Eric as he's doing stuff and talking about it. And it gets confusing because I don't like spreadsheets and numbers. I get it. I can't even, Excel is off my it's not my bailiwick. It's not my thing. You know, I think most of you guys know I'm a homicide detective. I work sexual assaults, that kind of stuff. That's what I do for a living. I can work those all day long and you can't keep up with me. So if you're an accountant, you know, awesome. Tell me how the spreadsheets work, but you know, good luck trying to figure out blood spatter. All right. So we've all got our different areas we work. And we've got our different knowledge bases, and spreadsheets are not my thing. So I'm counting on Eric to explain it. So if you were confused by the spreadsheets, you're fine. That's why Tori says I like spreadsheets. You got it, Tori. You're the best. Yeah, if you don't understand the spreadsheets, don't feel bad. It doesn't make you stupid. I am by no means a stupid person, but if you gave me those spreadsheets and said, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing, I wouldn't have a clue what's going on. So watch the videos, listen to Eric, and if it still doesn't get you, that's what this is for, us having a conversation. My townhome was built in 2012, and so are we going back to 2007 to assess the dues? No, we are not going back in time to assess the dues. What we're looking at is where we are right now, where we need to be, and we got to get to where we need to be so that we're good for the future. We're not going back in time to try to fix what wasn't collected before. You just can't. Now, I guess I should say, from a perspective of we're not looking back and going, well, you didn't pay this much back then, so you got to pay us this. What we're just looking at is we're going, okay, how much money do we have in the bank? How much money do we need to have in the bank to be where we need to be in the future for our different points? Let's start saving now. Let's make sure we're on track. The decrease for the single family homes of 8%. That's incorrect, Eric. Remember, that is a working document. That's not a planned decrease of any sort whatsoever. There are no, let me make this right now, I'll put it out there. There are no decreases in the dues planned for anything. If the single family homeowners are paying too much right now, your dues will stay exactly where they are. Remember, I own a single family home. That's what I'm paying for. My dues aren't going down. In fact, I pay over my dues because I don't ever want to be accidentally behind. But my dues are not going to go down at all. My dues are going to stay exactly where they are. What that means, though, is for the future, we don't need to worry about paying more for a while, because if the single family homeowners are paying 8% too much, then we're looking going, okay, well, we're paying 8% too much. When we need to have increases in the future, we don't have to. But what we're looking at is that difference. Like, this is what the homeowners should be paying in the single families. This is what we are paying. So look at that extra money we've got in there, extra money we've got in there to offset some of the costs over time. Things like putting the shed up there for storage or whatever going on, but we're not planning any decreases. So that's just that's misunderstanding what's being talked to. Because remember, this working documents. Eric's doing a lot of thinking. That's his brainstorming. That's why when he put those spreadsheets together, we talked about it in a meeting where he was explaining to the board what he's doing and where his thoughts are and what his recommendations are, and then we provided those documents to you. So don't get locked in on those numbers too much. And it's a good question. I tried to ask about Eric. He apparently doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Yeah, Eric's just he's trying to explain it, but Eric doesn't like doing videos, and most people don't. And he would rather try to explain it and everything, and then move on. And everybody's got different learning styles, so don't get frustrated with Eric. The guy is literally hundreds of hours sitting and going through those spreadsheets, and he measured he had to go to the county and get their documents from them. And then he used like a land measuring program on the computer to go through and make like hundreds of little clicks to surround the property, because he wanted to see how much of the property was actually measured versus what the reserve study accounted for. He was trying to double check what the engineers from the reserve study had done. Eric has put in hundreds of hours of work this year for the HOA. He's done more this year than I've done. He's done a ton. So yeah, he's probably just to the point where he's like, I don't know how to explain it differently. So that's why I'm jumping in. Your explanation about the $1,500 example you have was calculated. I thought the example you said something about going back 2007. So yeah, no, what I'm just talking about is the neighborhood was created in 2007. That's when they first stamped the documents and said we existed, even though they hadn't dug any property. I don't think the first home started hitting until late 2007, early 2008. But what they said was in 2007, when they stamped those documents, they said the maximum you can raise your dues to, or the maximum we can raise our dues to in this neighborhood is $1,500. And then every year, 6% more. So y'all are gonna make me do math regardless, no matter what. You just want to see me not be able to do math very well, so you can have a chuckle at me. But $1,500 times 0.7%, it's a $105 increase, so we'd be at $1,605. Ha, Tori, you're not gonna beat me right there. Wait, is that right? $1,500. That's not right, is it? It is right. Okay. Yeah, 1605. So 1605 in 2008 would have been the maximum you could raise your dues to. 1605, another $112. 1735 is the maximum you could raise it to in 2009. So that's how the maximum chart works. But that doesn't affect. That's just the only reason we reference that is if we look at the bills and we say, in order to pay all these bills, everybody's dues have got to go up by $50. Just throw a number out there. But the maximum allowable amount is only $40 more than where we currently are. We wouldn't be allowed to raise it that $50. What we found is by doing the charting, we're like, okay, we are well below what our maximum is. So whatever we need to raise the dues to get there, we're good. We got plenty of room to do that. And hopefully that makes sense. Not discounting that, and I appreciate you being open and talking about it. Your time is valuable. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. But no, I never mind talking about this stuff. It's probably the main reason that I've been on the board this long is because much to many people's, anybody who's ever asked me, hey, Rob, I have a question about the HOA. I'm sure within 20 minutes, they're like, I wish I hadn't asked because I give them an earful. But I very much appreciate the time people are taking this morning to sit and listen and watch this and have this conversation with me. It was actually 50 times more successful than I ever thought it would be. I just thought, well, I'll get on here and nobody will watch it, but you guys are awesome. I'm also hoping by doing this, I help make more sense prior to the meeting so that people aren't trying to figure stuff out. I want you to know enough going into us discussing that you get it before we have that meeting and you see us talking about stuff. Because if you don't know what we're talking about now, you're going to be going crazy when that meeting comes around and you don't understand what we're talking about at all. Still watching the comments over here. No one's worse than math than I am. All right. Doxy girl, I joke around all the time. I say, listen, I'm a cop. If I could do math, I'd be like a scientist, like a rocket scientist or something, you know? True statement, townhomes, yes, no. 7-4, Eric goes over the bylaw, states the reserve fund is for the common areas, not sure how it'll be managed once the two budgets are split. So the common areas, and Jim Burns-Tobin was saying, at 7:04 in the video, Eric goes over the bylaw and states that the reserve fund is for the common areas, not sure how to be managed once the two budgets are split. So the reserve fund is supposed to cover everything that's considered a common area in the neighborhood. What we're talking about is basically separating the common areas out into two types of common areas for our understanding, for our purposes of budget, where we just say, okay, there's townhome only common areas, townhome only common expenses. What we were talking about specifically was the roofs and stuff needing to have money set aside for them. They're not considered a common area where you climb up on the roof and that kind of thing, but we're still budgeting for them. Our HOA is the most open and fair. I vote for townhome single family to be accounted separately. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Jeff. I very much appreciate it. The only thing I ever cared about when somebody first asked me, I didn't go asking to be on the board. Somebody came and asked me like, hey, you seem really helpful on Facebook, because I would just answer questions about stuff I knew about. Would you consider running for the board? And I stood up with all these other people in the room who didn't know each other. There was a bunch of us, and said, hey, I'll run for the board. The only thing I cared about was that most homeowners associations get a reputation for being overbearing and a bunch of people on a power trip. And I said back then, and I say it now, my entire job gives me enough leeway to do all the stuff I need to do as far as fines and fees and being in charge of things, that I don't need to bring that to my home. So my concern as a homeowner is that I know what's going on and that I understand why people are doing things. I don't necessarily have to agree with why they're doing things, but I want to know why they're doing it. And I want to know that it's the right, that it's that they're doing what they're allowed to do and the right thing. So what I want to do as a member of the board is just make sure that you have the means to know what's going on. You have the means to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And you have the ability to have a conversation with somebody if you don't agree with it. That's what I've always shot for. So yeah. Cap retention should be a common to or let townhomes put up toll booths. That's what I talked about the other day was Caprington Road. Like, what are we going to do if we say Caprington's not common to the entire neighborhood? Do you put up a gate so that nobody can access that unless they're a townhomeowner? And so I think it's fair that Caprington Road is a everybody expense. We all use Caprington Road, and even if somebody says, "Well, I go out Almond Glen Drive, I don't ever go out Caprington." Well, that's the same argument as a person doesn't use the pool. So. Thank you for your time this morning. Last thing I'd like to leave with, please consider the timing of this decision with the pandemic and how it appears to us not feeling like we had a voice. So as far as not having a voice, I definitely want you guys to have a voice. But like I said earlier, what I wanted to do is make sure that you have the means to all these things. These things are available. This is by no means the first time you've ever had access to us. And this is a different way that I'm doing it, but this board, all of our boards have always been accessible. If nothing else, I know I've always been accessible. I'm not hidden away, very hard to find. I'm not secretive at all. I'm easy to contact and have a conversation with. So the fact that people are trying to catch up with stuff and know about things is just because it's a big deal now and people are noticing it. Just like when the trash issues come up, it's a big deal then, but then it kind of goes away. So you just you gotta stay on trying to figure out what's going on with the neighborhood. You don't need to be at every single meeting, but keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on is important. As far as the pandemic, I told Eric the other day, email blasts, I try to make them only, I'll jump back to the pandemic in a second. I try to make sure that the email blasts that we do are only when there's something like different or interesting going on. So if you're signed up for the newsletter, you will get those. And I think the website archives those, so you can go back and look. Let me jump over to the website real quick here. Uno momento. At one point I'd set up the email, the website so that it would save them. Archive newsletters. Let's see if they're all in there like they're supposed to be. Yep. So if you go to the website and you look under the menu and you go up, there's a section called Archive Newsletters. And if you look, you can see every newsletter I've ever sent out since October 4th of 2013. So if you're somebody who says, well, I don't want a lot of emails, there are very few emails. I don't send them out unless it is something major. So if you see one coming from Almond Glen, that's exactly what it is. It's something major. It's something big. Because if I send out emails, people don't open them. Now, what I will tell you is there's a hidden joke behind it all. If I go in here and I look, you guys can't see. I wish there's a way for me to share my screen. But if I go in and I look, I can tell you how many people have actually opened those emails and read them, and how many people click through from the email itself to the website to actually read what I put on there. There's a reason that the way I send the emails out, I send them out so that you can only see a portion of what's going on, and then you got to click to go to the website to see the rest of it. So I can actually look at those stats, and I'll tell you in just a moment how many people actually read our most recent email that we sent out. I can tell you how many emails we sent. I can tell you how many people looked at it. So it's the major budget meeting. Oh, HOA dues increase budget description and budget discussion. That's the email before the most recent. The most recent one tells everybody when the next meeting is. The one that is referring to all this stuff, I sent out like a week or two ago. That's what kind of the big one. So I sent out Ready for this? I sent out 647 emails. That's how many people are signed up for the newsletter. 17.77% of the people opened that email. So 115 of the 647 people who got that email actually opened it. Of that, 7.11%, 46 people clicked the link and read the email, like read the stuff on the website. So out of all the 647 emails I sent out, 46 people actually went to the website and read it. That's why people don't know what's going on. They don't pay attention. They don't care. And honestly, the joke of it is, if you think about it too, that's not even as many people as we have in the townhomes. We have 64 townhomes. So people just aren't noticing all the time. You said, so in one of those newsletters, a major dues increase is discussed? Yes. Yes, it is. It's the email right before this one. It's the one that email sends you to the website where the Glen Owners Association discussion, where I'm talking about the fact that there's a major dues increase. That's literally what it's called. So, yep, it's there. But yeah, that's the biggest reason for it. So go to the website, go to almondglenhoa.org or .com. Either way, it'll send you the same place. But go to almondglenhoa.com and update. What was the date of that newsletter? Let's see. Hang on. It is under archive newsletters. It's the HOA dues increase budget discussion, October the 25th of 2020. That's the date that one was sent out, saying here is the major dues increase meeting coming. Below that's new Almond Glen. Oh, wait. Yeah, major dues increase coming, meeting coming. And then you jump to that. It's the one where it shows you all the money picture on the major dues increase thing. And it says October 25th, 2020. There are 2 decisions that have to be made by the board in the next few weeks to finalize the 2021 budget. The budget is completely broken down into townhome and single family expenses. The 2 decisions will have a massive impact on the assessment amounts and the savings requirements going forward in the neighborhood. Actually, what I did is I took the wording that one of the girls on the website or on the Facebook page had used, and I put it in there. And then I linked to the video and I linked to the docs so that people can look at it and have an understanding of what's going on. Talking about communicating that this process has been going on all year, so we were part of the discussion decision being made throughout the year. A little bit of weirdness has happened due to COVID, so that's part of the reason people haven't noticed this coming. The board also was trying to figure out how to get it broken down and really separate it out. But one of the things you have to remember too about the way our HOA is set up is until we had all the numbers of how it was broke out, there's really no argument for you to make. Like you can sit there and say, well, I think the townhome should count this way. I think the roof should be this way. I think we should separate this out, that kind of thing. The board meetings are for the board. We don't necessarily have to even give time for people to talk. We like to if we can, and if there's people around who want to talk, we will. But these aren't things that you're going to have any power or impact on anyways. So there's some of it was trying to get everything organized and make sure we had the information to present before we presented it. So initially the first discussion that was had was talking with the board. It was like, hey, why don't we go ahead, it was in July when we first came together, why don't we go ahead and see if there's a way to separate the townhome expenses out? And that was what Eric started working on. After Eric got all that sorted out, he came to us at this most recent meeting where we knew he was working on it, but we didn't know what he had actually found because it was such a big process for him to contact the county, get the information, figure out the reserve study, read the reserve study, go through line by line and try to figure everything out. So Eric wasn't like updating us continuously on this. When he came to us in October, that meeting that you watched, that was the first time we as a board had sat down and looked at all the numbers the way Eric was planning them out and saying, what do you guys think? Here's what I found. That was he had done fact finding prior to that. So there's nothing for you to discuss prior to that. So the biggest slowdown was trying to get that video from a Zoom recording onto YouTube so you guys could see it. Because I think that meeting was it was earlier in October. And then it took like a week or two for me to finally get the stupid video to download and save it properly through a screen recording that I had to do. And then I was able to upload it. Was this dues increase discussed publicly on or before public 20th? No, that's what I was saying, because we didn't know where it was going to be. I just think with big changes like this, full transparency is vital and probably would have saved the board a lot of headaches. No, it's perfectly fine, and I think it's good feedback. It's just, I don't think, if I told you right now, hey, next year we're looking at raising your dues $50, that's not going to make any, there's nothing, and I go, oh, and there's nothing you can do about it. We're just gonna be figuring out how much we're gonna raise it, but probably $50. I don't think anybody would be happier about it. Maybe I might have more time to come to the point where they just go, whatever, it's gonna happen. But this is as fast as we could get the information together in this particular circumstance. But yeah, I mean, it's good feedback. I don't have a problem with it. It's just not that in this particular case, I don't think there's much we could have done different. The only thing we could have done before was tell everybody, hey, we're looking at separating your dues out or separating the budget out, but that's for our accounting purposes is all it is. We need to be able to see the accounting in two separate budgets so that we as a board could decide how much the dues need to go up. It's entirely possible Eric could have done the full budget, come back and say, hey, it actually looks like we don't need to increase their dues at all for the next 5 years. You know, we didn't expect that, but when we ask somebody to go out on a fact finding, we don't have the information to discuss at that time. No different than if somebody says, we want a playground in the neighborhood, which we've been on that path. And I say, well, why don't you go out and find out what it costs to get a playground and come back to us. 3 months later, when they come in and we say, okay, tell us about the playground, you can't get mad and say, well, where have you been for the last 3 months talking about this? Like we weren't talking about it. We sent them off to figure it out and come back and tell us. So like I said, this particular circumstance, I feel like there was something else I was going to answer and I got sidetracked. Thank you for the time this morning. What's going on? Had a voice on it. Perhaps we can table this further discussion 21. No, there's no further discussion on this as far as, and I missed that part of what you said, as far as like tabling it. If we tabled it until 2021, it's just gonna be a bigger dues increase. You're falling further and further behind in the money you need. So if you want to table it for 5 years, we can table it for 5 years, and then we'll have to increase your dues to the maximum amount in 5 years. At some point, you're going to have to start paying this money in order to be able to keep up with your expenses. So tabling it isn't helping at all. It's only further, it's exasperating the problem every time we turn around. It's not going to make it go away. It's not going to reduce it. Let me look and see if I have any other messages here. Maybe I'll spark something else to somebody's mind here or something like that. So Eric Carter said, my argument is that reserve fund is to be used for all common areas and also the obligations of the association, which townhomes are a part of. I don't believe that we should be splitting the reserve fund at all because we are all one community. So to that point, let's just say we're going to leave the reserve fund in one big pile, because what we've done for years was sitting behind the scenes would try to look at the budget, like figure out the townhome expenses best he could with a good guess. And then the single family expenses with a good guess, or the general expenses with a good guess. And then when we presented a budget to you guys, we give you one big spreadsheet. Behind the scenes, we were looking at the numbers, and that's how we would decide, okay, this year we're going to increase the dues for the townhomes by 4 or 5%, and we're going to increase the single family homes by 1%. That's how we're making those decisions, rather than doing one big chunk. And back when we had Dina, the only townhome owner who's ever on the board, she said, I think it should be raised a little bit at a time, not one big blast. So that's how we did it. We were slowly raising it. We're not catching up fast enough. And we're further and further behind, and we're exasperating those issues, like I said. So that's why we are where we are. But we could present to you one big budget on the front end and just raise your dues and show you the big budget and say, here's the reserve fund, knowing that the reality is this much of it's actually being used for the general budget, this much of it's for your problems. and you're paying in more to this all the time, and there's a little bit going in here, and we know what the numbers really are. We're just showing it to you as one big number to make you happy. What we're talking about doing is giving you a better actual look at, these are the expenses over here for common areas, and these are the expenses over here for townhome expenses. So we're talking about separating those things out on paper so that you can see how it looks. It's still one bank account. We don't have multiple bank accounts. We have one bank account. And that's what we're trying to figure out as a way to show you a more, I started to use truth in lending, but it's not lending, but a more factual, like, this is what your money is being used for. And that's what we're going for. I think what would be helpful is to give an estimate of what you think dues could be given the 2 pending decisions. Are you thinking an additional $20 a month for 2021 and each year thereafter? It's tough for me to guess, Tori. So I'll make a guess as long as you don't hold me to anything more than a guess. And the reason I say it's a guess is because we've not made the initial decisions. Like, one of the biggest decisions is how much money goes into the reserve budget for the townhomes versus the general budget. How much money do we split off and say, okay, that's your money. The more money we split and put into that pile over there, the less money you need to pay additionally every year, because you already have a bigger starting pot, if that makes sense. You have more money in your reserves, so you don't need to pay as much to catch up. So if we end up where I think we're going to end up, I think we're looking at around, again, if you come back later and say, well, Rob said it was going to be this much, I'm going to be like, look, you chose one little portion of what I said. I think we're looking at around a $40 to $50 increase in the dues this year, and then that maintaining with like a normal 2 to 3% increase over the rest of the time. I don't anticipate, like, I'm not looking at a $40 increase this year, a $40 increase next year, no. I'm looking at, if we needed to do what we need to do, I think it's going to be around $40 to $50, and then that's where it is. And then as the years go by, small increase. Tori says, I won't say it. Now you have to say it just to almost be funny, but be like, well, but didn't you say, Rob? Now what the board was discussing is, let's say that we do all the numbers and we go, okay, guys, the increase needs to be $50. That's where the board can sit there and scratch their heads and go, okay, do we just do $20 this year, $20 next year, $10 next year? Do we do 25 this year, 25 the next year? Do we just do the whole thing at one shot? What do we do? So the first big part of it, I think, if I remember correctly, the first big question that Eric said we need to decide on is how much money goes into those reserves, and then how much of the land around the neighborhood is considered townhome versus like the roads and stuff like that we're responsible for paving. How much of that's considered townhome? If the board was to sit down and go, okay, all roads in the neighborhood, Lanark, parking spaces, everything, all of that belongs to everybody in the neighborhood, that would substantially change what the town homeowners only are responsible for. Because when you're talking about those two expenses, you're talking about expenses divided by 295, the total number of people who own homes in the neighborhood, versus 64, the total number of people who own townhomes. So if we say all the property, all the roads, everything in the neighborhood that's paved is the responsibility of everybody, that means total budget to repair all those divided by 295. If we say the parking lots and all the roads attached to those parking lots in the townhome area belong to the townhome owners, now it's that amount of money to fix those divided by 64, and then the rest of the neighborhood stuff like the pool parking lot, things like that, divided by 295. So that makes a big difference on it. I think it would be an additional $50 per month. I won't say, okay. Eric Carter says, and staggered over 2 to 3 years, so it's not such a big hit. And I know that's what Eric's saying is, 2 to 3 years staggered, so it's not such a big hit. I get it. I mean, let's say we raise it by, I'm not going to do the math in my head because I'll mess it up. Let's say we raise it by $50 a month. That's $600 additional per year, and I recognize there's a lot of people who are looking at their budgets and going, $600 per year isn't something I can do. Part of what I'm thinking when I'm trying to make this decision is, If somebody looks at that $600 a year and goes, I can't do that, can you split it? So I go, okay, as a board, we say, let's increase it by $25. That means $300 a year increase. Are you going to have the money the next year, or are we just delaying the inevitable? I personally think what we're doing is we're delaying the inevitable. We're just pushing it out. We're pushing it out, and we're making it so that people are like, well, I can't afford a $600 increase, but I can afford a $200 increase this year. And then the next year rolls around and we go, okay, we're going to increase it by another $200. And they go, well, I can't afford a $200 increase this year, but I can afford another $100 increase. If your budget is that tight, you're already behind the gun. I mean, and that's what, oh, I know what it was. I'm gonna write it down so I don't forget. So that's part of what I'm looking at. And again, my last concern on that is that your new board in July will do nothing. They'll say, well, we don't want people to be mad at us like the last board was. I don't want to raise dues a bunch and get in trouble. Or maybe they just don't care. Maybe they're like, what do I care? I'm only going to live here for 3 more years. So I'm not going to raise dues at all. And in 3 years, I'll sell my home and none of it's my problem. They're kicking problems down the road for other people. Some of us who are, I'm not planning to move anytime soon. There's plenty of people who I'm sure are not planning to move anytime soon. And they're not looking forward to a massive increase in the future or a massive assessment. And that's part of the problem. If we don't save any money in reserves right now, and one day, let's say there is an expense like the swimming pool lining, eventually it needs replaced. And let's say that's a $40,000 project. If we don't have the money in reserves, that means we need to turn around to everybody in the neighborhood and say, okay, everybody, attention all, $40,000 project to keep the pool running, divided by 295. Everybody needs to pay $135 and 59 cents, or $135.60. Need a check from everybody. Now we have to get a super majority to even agree to that. We'll never get a super majority to agree to that. So what's going to happen is the pool's going to fall stagnant and go out in disrepair and won't repair the pool. So we need to prepare for those in the future. The Sisters Townhome did not have proper reserves. Then came the bill for new roofs, $2,700. Next year for fixing the parking lot, over $500. Next year, parking lot resurfacing, another $2,000, and then a lien. And that's exactly right. Jeff just outlined. And remember, Jeff lives in a single family home. Townhomes aren't necessarily his problem. And these expenses will fall on the town homeowners in the future. Now, when you talk about it affecting us, yeah, if you don't replace your roofs, your siding, you let your roads go to crap, and the neighborhood looks like garbage, and you can't pay your landscaper over there at the lands, yeah, it's definitely going to affect me as a single family homeowner as those things fall into disrepair. So we have to keep things rolling on a good thing. Most should be able to get a job or in a position by then, hopefully. Well, and that's assuming that everybody's lost their jobs due to COVID and stuff. So that's what I was going to bring up earlier was COVID, the pandemic. This is going to be a tough one. As an individual, as a person, I feel bad for anybody who's in a tough position. If I lost my job tomorrow, I would be in a tough position. My wife lost her job, she'd be in a tough position. If we couldn't pay our bills, we would find ourselves in dire straits, and we would be looking for help anywhere we could get it. As the board of directors for the Almond-Glen Owners Association, as a member of the board of directors for the Almond-Glen Owners Association, I have a fiduciary duty to the entire neighborhood. 294 people want me to make sure that the 295th person pays their bills. Kicking the problem down the road. I watched a news report the other day where I saw an association where they decided not to collect dues for a couple months because they're like, we have a sizable reserve. We're going to kick the problem down the road. We're not going to collect dues for the next couple months and we'll be fine. But they still have bills. The electricity still needs to be turned on. The management company still needs to be paid. They're just going to basically they're going to eat up some of their reserve fund for the next couple months so that they can be popular and they can go, hey, look how nice we are. A couple months from now, let's say they kick that down the road for a couple months and people don't get jobs and things don't change with the economy right away and problems start to come up. Hey, we got to get our money in. We got to get our money in. We did you a favor. We helped you out. There's going to be a portion of people who go, I don't care. Not my problem. I can't pay. we have a fiduciary duty to the community to make decisions for the community based upon what needs to be paid, what needs to be done. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, it's no big deal that you can't pay. We'll, due to the pandemic and COVID, we'll kick it down the road, because we're kicking problems down the road that are definitely going to come up someday. So it's just one of those things that we just can't do. So I don't want it to be mean or sound bad or whatever, but I can't find a way to, at least personally, I can't find a way to go, well, I'm not gonna worry about it down the road. We'll just take care of people now. Now the board discussion will come up. We'll have some conversation, and I might be swayed the other direction. I'm always open to input. That's why I'm talking to people today. I'm open to input and decisions. And if the majority of the community doesn't have jobs right now, and the pandemic is affecting them, hey, maybe we have to make some decisions to kick it down the road. Maybe we need to increase the dues, 2 times as much 3 years from now and not touch it right now. But what are you going to do in 3 years when we come in and we say, okay, now we got to increase the dues $100 because we didn't do it back then and we're falling further behind. So all you're doing is kicking that problem down the road. You're just continuously kicking it down the road. You're not resolving it. I don't think that's doing anybody a service whatsoever. If we had ripped the Band-Aid off a couple years ago and just started making some big increases, this wouldn't be happening right now. But because we didn't do it then, we're finding ourselves deeper and deeper into the hole. So it's nothing we've sat down and done numbers on in the past fully. It's just something we were looking at where we're like, hey, the amount of money that the townhomes cost to operate all their stuff and everything versus the amount of money that they're actually paying doesn't look like it's keeping up. They're falling behind. We got to do something about this. We're subsidizing the homes up there. Now we're getting to the point where it's like, we've got to get this under control. We've got to. So as much as this may hurt and tick people off and suck right now, we rip this Band-Aid off and we get everybody up to play, and the people who can't stay in the neighborhood, they say, you know what, I got to sell my home on fixed income. Hopefully they get the maximum dollar they can. Well, the economy, last I saw, homes are still selling well. So while they're still selling homes well, they sell their home, they get the maximum dollar they can, and if they go on and figure something out for them, and we keep the neighborhood going. Because ultimately, I like my neighbors. I like a lot of people I know in the neighborhood. There's even people who don't like me, who I've talked with over the years. And you find somebody right now who has said something disparaging or mean to me or been a jerk to me, and find them and ask them, hey, when you've gone and talked to Rob, has he ever been, unwilling to help you in some way? It's not true at all. I'm always willing to say, hey, look, I just don't hold grudges. So that's just the way it is. So I'll always do what I can for you, but I have to think of as a board member, I individually have to think of the overall picture. Now the other board members might come, like I said, with different thoughts, and that might be where it changes things a little bit. I'm going to look real quickly here, see if there's anything else. This is we're at an hour and 57 minutes. I didn't expect to be on here for more than 20 minutes because I didn't think anybody would be on here. So again, thank you to those of you who popped on this morning and taking some time to sit and chat and listen. I know Eric Carter at one point was saying that some of his posts had disappeared or something. If you comment on something somebody else commented on and they delete it, none of the board members are admins on the Almond Glen owners or Almond Glen friends page. I dropped my admin status years ago. We don't have anything to do with that. So I don't think anybody's deleting any posts. I think they get mixed up sometimes. Eric was saying the only 2 decisions we need feedback on are suggestions on how to split the savings and suggestions on how to split the paving. So arguments as to, I think everybody should, the Caprington should be everybody's, or we should all have this paving the same, or whatever, that kind of thing. And on how to split the savings. So the savings account is the reserve. What do you think? Should we give a huge chunk to the townhomes, regardless of what they paid in? Just give them enough to get them going, or should we try to figure out every penny of it? And if they've only paid in 25% of that budget, say it's your problem, 25%, maximize their need to pay in. So that was kind of some of the feedback we wanted on it. And if you look at the presentation compared to the reserve study, the board has already moved several line items from town home only expenses to common expenses. We went through and did that. So that was just Eric. Renee Vick was talking about. Renee says, "Oh, there's only a handful of people on Facebook." I absolutely know that. That's why we have the email address and all these other things available to people, YouTube and for the, and, you know, I know one of the folks was saying on here, well, how's my 80-year-old neighbor supposed to be involved? Well, first of all, just because you're 80 doesn't mean you can't use the internet. So there's plenty of 80-year-olds who are on the internet. There's plenty of 25-year-olds who don't do anything on the internet with this kind of stuff. So I don't think we should worry about the age thing so much, but I get your point. Your point is not everybody has access to YouTube, Facebook, the internet, Nextdoor. But there's like I said, there's always going to be somebody. I said, I think at the top of this whole thing, there's always going to be somebody who can't for some way participate, or for some reason participate in some way. That's a fact of the world. No matter what time of day we have the meetings, somebody says they're at work, or if we have them on Tuesdays, somebody says they can't make it on Tuesdays. So that's the way that lands, and I'm sorry that it goes that way. I say go to the website, almondglenhoa.com, and sign up for the newsletter. There is a newsletter section on there. I think on the mobile version, it's all the way down at the bottom. Look around on the page. You'll see the sign up for the newsletter. Put your email address in. You'll get newsletters from us when we send them out. And then, of course, once we decide the budget, just like every year when we decide the budget, you know, every year we do the same process. We have budget discussions, usually about midpoint in the year, or well, September-ish or something like that. And then in November, we try to send a letter out and tell everybody, hey, everybody, your dues are going up this amount or that amount or whatever. And this is how much you pay, and this is where you pay. We send that letter every year. The only thing different is this year, we're looking at bringing it up more to meet what we're seeing as a problem. We had two entirely different threads going on. One was pinned announcement posts, and one was a discussion post. It was easy to mix up. None of us censored any posts. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the discussions were popping all over the place. And what would have been nice is if, you know, maybe what we should do, a lot of times what I'll do, I'll put a post on the Almond Glen Owners Association Facebook, and then I'll share it over. What I need to start doing is make sure when I share it over, I turn off the comments, and then you got to go to our page, because it would be easier if everybody wanted the board to see what's going on. If you went to the Almond Glen Owners Association Facebook page to make all your comments on what's going on, so that we can see it in one place, because it does get a little bouncy, but we try to keep up best we can. But yeah, there's no censorship. We don't, unless you're getting on there and just being racist or flat out mean or something like that. You know, we're not going to go in there and ask anybody to censor anything. I'm just shooting down through the comments, trying to see if there's anything else. Again, there was questions about lowering the single-family homes by 8%. That's not happening. We were just showing the difference between where the single-family homes are paying versus what they should be paying, so that we could say, well, there's extra money there to get things up to speed. And don't feel bad. I had to actually double check with Eric and be like, hey, what am I looking at? I don't remember us talking about lower dues. And he was like, no, that's probably the difference and everything. It's a working, I'm like, okay, these are working documents. Again, this is still like scratch paper when you look at those documents. Shooting down through here. Renee Vick kept. She said, "What good would it do? The majority are single family homeowners." Talking about serving on the board. I just say that town homeowners should all just rent our units and let it become an apartment complex. $250 a month is unheard of for a regime fee. $200 is reasonable. So okay, so let's unpack here. First of all, what good would it do? Serving on the board is the #1 best way that you can have when it comes to having an impact. It's the number one best way to have an impact, because as a board member, you're making the actual decisions for how things get done. So that's the number one reason. The majority are single family homes. Yeah, but you still can have a lot of sway when you're on the board and you're making discussions in that 5-person panel. You're really going to have the opportunity to make some real impact. I just say that we as town homeowners should all rent our units and become an apartment complex. Okay, I don't know what to tell you about that. $250 a month is unheard of for a regime fee. I don't know why you keep referring to it as a regime fee. I don't know if that's a statement or what's going on with regime fee, but it's a HOA fee. It's dues. It's what you pay in to maintain things. A regime makes it sound like there's a regime, there's people in charge, and they're benefiting from it in some way. I don't know what you're going for. The real thing about it is $250 a month is unheard of. $200 is reasonable. Based on what? I don't understand when you say something like it's reasonable for this amount, but not for that amount. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know that the fee is going to be $250 a month, because the numbers have been so all over the place. But $250 a month, that might not be unheard of if we had 15 times the amenities in our neighborhood, or if we had less homes in a neighborhood paying for the same stuff, the fee would be higher. So your $200 a month, my question to you would be, what does that number come from? Where do you pull that from? Is that just what you personally can afford, or did you actually do some math and you figured out where $200 a month would be enough to pay all the bills? If you did, share those numbers with us. Maybe we're not putting a zero in the right place, or maybe we misinterpret. That's why we wanted to put this stuff out there in case somebody looked and said, hey, did you guys realize that you can do this, this, and this and save some money? So I saw there's a few comments. Give me just a moment and I'll jump up there and look. Melissa Isbin was saying, we're told the trees will be taken care of every cold season and every year, and they never do. Yeah, we did. We did. Where's the email from the last time we had those all trimmed? Anybody who drives down Almond Glen can remember when all the trees got topped, and all the trees were topped at the pool, and there was a huge difference. You could definitely tell that day that there had been some work done, even if you didn't notice them doing the work. And they did the townhomes at the same time, and then in the winter, the what's it called? The landscaping company is supposed to do it. So it's a matter of forgetting that things have been done. But it was AAA tree. I think it was AAA tree something or another. What was it called? AAA tree experts. Here's the invoice. Dear Almond Glen HOA, attached is your invoice for work completed by our tree care team. And that one is dated. Here we go. Please ensure payment of the attached invoice to Rob Smith, President of the Almond Glen Owners Association. Invoice to Almond Glen HOA. Project manager was Greg Keller of AAA Tree Experts, located 9535 Hebron Commerce Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina. Their email address is office@aaatrees.net, www.aaatrees.net. They did a great job for us. There's the picture of their thing and the invoice and the date. If you look on there, 1/23/2020, and it was prune crepe myrtle trees to a discussed height at the entrance. Prune specific trees to provide clearance to townhomes on. They put Bark Hill, but Burke Hill, Caprington, Lanark, and Broughton roads. Clean up debris and remove. That's all included in the dealio that they did. I'll put it right there. It's too blurry. You can't read it all. But here, you'll just have to trust me. But that's how much money we paid for it. $7,125. We paid that invoice, and again, that's dated of January the 23rd of 2020. So maybe I'll screenshot this. Yeah, I'll screenshot this. And I'll put this on people just forget, and I get it. I mean, time flies by. I don't remember what I did last week. It has been the longest freaking year. Who out there knew and remembered that we had our trees trimmed in our neighborhood in January of 2020. COVID was almost here. It's been such a long year. We just forget these things. So I'm glad I found that while I was looking at here. And now this dude's BS. Every year we're told the trees will be taken care of, and they never do it. Now I'm going to reply to her right now. So Melissa, if you're watching now, I'm replying to your post right now. So, and I'm not mad at anybody for it. It's too much to remember. I get it. I had to actually look it up because I was like, wait, I know we did it. I remember, but I might be wrong. Let me look because it could have been 2 years ago. And I'd be like, my bad. It's just like when people say we didn't pressure wash the homes. I'll pull the invoices for you. We had the homes pressure washed a couple times. We had them pressure washed when we did all the painting. Did you forget about the $60,000 painting project we just completed this last year during COVID? So it's been during like the March timeframe or something like that. We just finished up with a $60-some thousand, and I think there was money on top of it. We paid for all kinds of little repairs we did around the neighborhood in 2020. So if somebody was to say, and they didn't even pressure wash my home, I'd be like, where were you? Did your stuff got painted? We did caulking, painting, and pressure washing, something we'd been trying to get done for years. We finally got it done this year. So we've been doing a lot. People just forgetting. Let me read your comments here. I apologize. I've fallen behind. Rob, what would be helpful when requesting feedback on items is share where you'd like that feedback sent. That is what I was trying to convey when discussing it. Totally understand. It's complicated for people, and I think the easiest thing to say is if you have something you want to say, like feedback wise, email it to us. But if you want an open discussion, you're just going to have to either like draw our attention to it or tag it, because I don't want to limit you either. I don't want to say, well, it has to be on the Glen Owners Facebook page only, or we ignore you. But keep in mind, like I see stuff on the Glen Owners Facebook page a whole lot more than I do on Glen Friends Facebook page. And I see stuff on that's personally emailed or messaged to me. A lot of people message me on Facebook. I see those things a lot more, but I miss them sometimes if we've never talked before because it goes in that little spam folder at first. So you can email amenglenhoa@gmail.com anytime. And you know what? In fact, I'll put it down here. Anytime, and we'll get the email. That goes straight to an email inbox that I see. I think a couple of the other board members look at it too, and that way you know we're getting it. And if you're communicating with the management company, I always recommend, if you're emailing Ashley, CC the board of directors. Nothing secretive anyways. I had somebody email Ashley one time telling her that she was mad at Rob Smith and they wanted me kicked off and I was the worst person and everything, and I should be fired from my board position and all this stuff. They sent all that to Ashley. Ashley forwards everything to us. She has to. She works for the board. She knows who she works for. She takes our stuff and she forwards it. So I kind of chuckled as I'm reading this letter. They could have just sent it directly to me. But yeah, this, CC us so that when you're communicating with her, if she's not communicating back with you or something, we know about it. We can help out. There's nothing that's secretive from us. I know how much your dues are. I know how much you paid. I know whether or not you paid your dues or not. I know if I needed to get access to your account number stuff or something, I've done it before. Somebody's like, hey, Rob, how do I get access to my account? I don't know my password because it's preset by them. It's one of the things I don't like. I wish you could change it. But I just forward that email to Ashley and she replies back. So I can get your password and I can log in and see your account, which I could see anyway. So there's nothing that you're keeping secret from us anyway. So copy us on it so that so we know if you're getting a response or not. Oh, Tori retracted a message. Was that something juicy or you just accidentally typed it wrong? For instance, would you prefer an email sent to the HOA comments or the official HOA AG page versus Glen Friends? I think, I kind of went over that. I would have honestly had to look up for the search feature. Yeah, I did the same thing. There's so much all over the place that sometimes it's hard to keep up with. And, from that point, I mean, like I said, I don't want to limit you. I mean, if you want to have a discussion with your neighbors and you don't necessarily want us arguing with you, I understand that too. But if you want us to see it, I want you to have access to it. So the easiest way to do feedback, I mean, there's a comment section on the HOA page, but we try to watch all of them. But if we're not seeing it, get our attention on it. That's I guess that'd be the big thing. But I'm not going to limit you. Email is definitely going to get to me. And then there's next door messages, Facebook messages. We'll get it somehow. But I want to make it easiest for you guys. So I mean, some people, you can stick a letter in my mailbox if you want. You don't even have to mail it. You can come up and stick it in the paper slot. I'll get it. Knock on the door. Hey, Rob, you have some time to talk? I have all the contact info saved in the About section of the AG Friends group for easy reference. That's awesome. Now I know who Doxy Girl is 100%. I wasn't 100% sure if that was you or not. So I'm going to probably wrap this up. This is 2 hours and 14 minutes, and my coffee's definitely gotten cold, but I made it last a little bit here. Anybody else got anything else before I hop off? And you're still welcome to shoot me an email or a message after this if you have a question or something. I do hope this has helped to some degree. I would do more of this if it would be helpful, if people would appreciate it or use it. Tori says thumbs up. All right, well, I'll call it then right here, and I'm going to go think about anything and everything in the world except for homeowners association stuff for the next few days. Hopefully, I'm going to turn my brain off a little bit. I'm still around, though. If you want to email me or message us or whatever, we'll try to get you the answers we can. At least you hopefully have an idea of where we're coming from thought process-wise. No worries, Eric. Thank you. Yeah, if you have an idea, if this helps get the information across in a way that makes sense, at least even if you don't agree, at least you understand what our thoughts are. It's a whole lot easier to get to an end point if you understand where the person's coming from. That is a definite in my job. I deal with that all day long, where it's not my problem what's going on, but I have to figure out a way to help you get to an end point. So I need to understand where you're coming from. So I'm trying really hard with that, with this HOA stuff, because I get it. I don't want my dues to go up either. I do not want to raise your dues. I would be a whole lot more popular if I could resolve everybody's problems without ever having to raise dues, but I'm trying to make sure that we're all covered and that the community as a whole does better. If it turns out, say we raise the dues and next year we start looking and we go, whoa, we way overestimated and we're taking in way more money than we ever needed. If there's some sort of major error like that, well, that's where boards can sit there and go, do we issue a refund? Do we never raise dues for the next 10 years? Do we, how do we manage this out? One thing I'll finalize, I'll say this last thing before I hop off here. And I think, yeah, she says, is it me? One thing I'm going to say at the end here, just as a final thing, a word on social committee stuff. The neighborhood, when we first started off, when I first moved here in 2010, was still under the control of the builder. People would get together at the pool and we would have like potlucks and we would have like chili cook-off stuff or whatever. We did these little things together as a neighborhood. We just kind of came together, much like people did around the neighborhood during Halloween. They've always done that on Halloween. There's get-togethers that people do in cul-de-sacs all over the neighborhood. I would be doing that in my cul-de-sac if I didn't have a trick-or-treat age kid. So neighbors would get together and we just kind of do stuff together. When we came on the board and we got our own board, we got our own control of our own money, I started looking for ways that we could take some of the money and use it to kind of prop up some of these things. So instead of the neighborhood just coming together and doing like a potluck, can we buy some of the food? Can we chip in with some decorations? What can we do? So we started doing that kind of stuff. From that came the social committee and the social budget. We could still have a social committee and they could help organize events and stuff together, but we don't have any money to put into that. And the reason I say that is when we're looking at raising dues the way we are to pay for things, and when we're looking at shortfalls in our reserve budget, we don't have extra money to put anywhere. All of our money is allotted to the things that we have. So we can't use HOA dues for social stuff anyways. There's a list of things we can spend HOA dues on, and there's no place in there where we can spend it on parties. But what we do have is late fees, and I sell the pool fobs and stuff like that. People got mad because I offered the money from the pool fob sales this year for the Halloween kind of fall get-together thing. It was a couple $100. It wasn't much, but I'm like, that's what I got. And I didn't have to go begging the board for it either. I could just tell the board, like, hey, I'm going to give the pool sale fob money to these folks to use for this, and I don't think the board would push back on that. But I can't really justify asking the board to spend money out of late fees and things like that, things that aren't allocated to anything that I can use for whatever we want. I can't do that when it's time for midweek minimum. Yes, I can't do that money into that stuff when we're looking at budget shortfalls and we're looking at reserve shortfalls and we're looking at increasing dues. Nothing would make me more angry than if you came to me and said, hey, we're going to raise your dues by $50 a month, but we're also going to throw a party with the late fees that we collect from all the people who can't pay their dues. See the problem? So when you see people getting angry on Facebook about why don't we have more social things and why won't they spend it, and rah about that, keep in mind it's the same group of people over and over and over. I don't know why they don't like me. I don't know what their problem is. I don't know what I did to those individuals at some point, but at some point I wronged a few people in the neighborhood. I've even been accused, this is the funny part, I get accused of being a male chauvinist, and I don't like women. My partner at work is a female. I helped select her as my partner. My wife, you can come over and tell her after she stops doing CrossFit in the garage, tell her that I'm a chauvinist and that she's a weak woman. Good luck with that. I am personally responsible for weighing the votes in that got Virginia to stay on the board over the years. I've put all the votes that came towards me, I put them towards Virginia. I like working with Virginia on the board. The two new board members who are on this year are Sabina and Meg. I called Meg and asked her if she would serve on the board. And Sabina, when she reached out and said, hey, I'm thinking about running for the board, I was like, yes. I have zero goose eggs, what we call that, double O's. I have zero problem working with women, supporting women. My daughter is a strong little girl. I want her to be an independent, strong female who doesn't need nothing from a man to function in this world so that she can be her own person. Call me a male chauvinist one more time. So, but I want the social committee stuff to be great. I would love everybody to get together. I'd walk down and hang out with people at the pool if they were having like a little get together. I'd bring a pot of chili down or whatever. But we don't have the money to just take it from our HOA dues and throw it in there. I personally have some money, and I'll go buy a pot of chili and I'll throw in some buns or whatever. But we can't take HOA dues and do that kind of stuff. So help me get people to understand that. I don't think they do that part out of malicious anger. There are some people that for whatever reason don't like me, and I would encourage them to just, search your soul and try to figure out like where in your heart, like, why are you so mad at me? And come tell me, like, hey, you said this one time, and maybe I did say it and I didn't mean whatever it was I said, or maybe I said it and it came off wrong, or maybe you heard from somebody else. I think a lot of people hear from somebody else that I said or did a certain thing, or they took things the wrong way, and that's where it all gets mixed up. So, personal plea from me: if you don't like me, please tell me why. If it's just that you don't like me, I don't know. Maybe I don't like you either. Maybe you're a jerk too. So, I'm certainly not the nicest person all the time, but generally speaking, I try to be kind and compassionate to my neighbors. So, nothing else. I'm going to go ahead and end this. I'm going to try to save it. If it disappears forever, I clicked wrong or it doesn't work, but we'll see. Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday. If you're somebody of prayer, say a prayer for everybody in the world who needs it right now, and take care, everybody.